Good evening and welcome to the December 12th, 2023 Hanson Select Board meeting. This meeting is being taped by Whitman Hanson Community Access Television. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Rain, may I prevail upon you to read the public announcements?
We are looking for citizens at large to become members of the following committees: the Board of Health, Bylaw Committee, Cable and Internet Committee, Community Preservation Committee, Capital Improvement Committee, Cultural Council, Energy Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day and Patriotic Observance Committee, the Recreation Committee, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Volunteer applications may be found on the town website, www.hanson-ma.gov, or by calling the Select Board's office at 781-293-2131. Upcoming meetings: Select Board, January 9th, 2024, and the Select Board, January 23rd, 2024. Season's greetings.
Okay, lovely. And for once, we have an extremely short announcements, and we need to get our tap shoes on for another 3 minutes because the Board of Health is not posted to meet until 6:05. So, Ms. Green, did you have anything you wanted to let us know about in that intervening 3 minutes?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have a very special presentation. We have a number of our legislative officials here. We have Senator Brady, welcome. We have Tom O'Brien, treasurer for the Plymouth County Retirement. Jared Valazol, who's also a representative from Plymouth County here. And we have Matthew Hanley, again. They have a very special check to present to us regarding our ARPA funds. And this is money that we had applied for to put towards the cost of demolishing the Muckwan. So, gentlemen, I'm going to hand this over to you.
And just one correction, it's Plymouth County Commissioner Greg Hanley.
I apologize.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
Should we approach? Or?
Yes, please do. And I sincerely mean this. I don't want to be rude, but we
yes.
As I mentioned, how long do you think that this will take?
We can be done in 2.5 minutes.
Okay, great.
I know we have.
That's about all you got.
That's the right answer. Okay.
We'll do our best.
Okay.
And we really.
All right.
We'll do our best.
Well, let me say this. If you want to wait a couple of minutes, then we can give you a little more latitude. And I know you've got, and I don't, I'm big fans of all of you guys, but I know people may want to say a few words, and being that a lot of folks, have the gift of gab, it might take more than 2 minutes. So I'm wondering whether, okay, I'm not mentioning any names at all. No, and then, okay.
We always sing for you.
All right. I'm sure you could bust out a couple of Irish tunes for us. All right, so we almost have like 1 minute, Mr. Perkins. I'm putting my tap shoes on, trying to drag this out as long as I possibly can. And so you guys at 6:05 will call your meeting to order. And so just so that everybody is aware, we're here, we have a quick, what I think will be quick, appointment to the Board of Health for a potential candidate, Peter Butler. So it's going to be a joint meeting between the Board of Health and the Select Board, which will require the acting chair, Kevin Perkins, to call their meeting to order. And then we will hear from Mr. Butler, who we have kindly seated in the Where Were You on the Night of the Fifth chair for the Inquisition, which always makes people feel very welcome. So, Mr. Perkins, I think we're good to go.
So 5 p.m., call the Hanson Board of Health meeting to order today, Tuesday, December 12, 2023, posted 6:05 p.m. for the Hanson Town Hall Selectmen Meeting Room. Present, Kevin Perkins, Eileen Diaz. As Ms. Kevin said, we're here to fill a vacancy on the Board of Health, and that's done by joint meeting with an overall vote, I believe. So, Eileen, did you had reviewed the application?
I did.
I've reviewed the application. I actually spoke to Mr. Butler on the phone too as well. I think he'd be a great candidate, but I mean, for everyone else, would it be all right
Well,
to say? if you-
yeah, I think it would also, I know you had Teresa speak to him and Mr. Amato, and I didn't know if they might want to just, chime in. You're not required to, but, if you wanted to chime in. Mr. Amato, did you want to share anything with us, or?
No, I spoke to him on the phone also, he seemed quite interested in it, and had a lot of enthusiasm, so I'm going to try out both of them.
Okay, great. Mr. Butler, what say you?
So I'm a new resident to Hanson. I just joined the town in June of this year. I'm interested in local government. I think it's where all of the work happens and all of the action happens. I have previous experience with the Board of Health of Weymouth from 2017 to 2019, and that was a great experience. So I'm looking to continue that here as a resident and volunteer in Hanson. My educational background is in environmental science with Quincy College in '96, and I have a master's of public administration from UMass Boston in 2015. So I just want to put that experience and those skills to use here in Hanson.
Well, we're thrilled, and I know Mr. Butler had applied for the Master Planning Committee, and we heard word that he had served on the Board of Health, and I immediately called him and said, would you possibly put your name in for something else? And he graciously took my call on a Friday night while he was out to dinner. So we feel good about that. And I'm thrilled that you've been in another Board of Health, because, we're always open to, do other towns do things differently? Do you have ideas or whatever? And it's been tricky for this Board of Health because it's a 3-member board. So if one, and we have 2 people who actually work for a living on the board. So if they ever get called in to do things, a lot of, you run the risk that we're not going to have a quorum, and then they can't get the business done that they need to get done. So, if we're able to add you on, if the will of both boards is to do that, then it will give them a lot of relief to have that third person in there. Mr. Perkins, was there anything else you wanted to?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is essentially like a temporary, that we're filling.
Yes,
vacancies
that's an excellent point.
Until
Yep.
the election. So I think it's really a good opportunity for both us and for Mr. Butler, that he can try and see if it's something he wants to pursue and
Yep.
continue with and run for election, and also just, fills the vacancy until then to help us out.
That's an excellent point. So this is a good way for you to dip your toes in the water, see if you like the temperature, and we're hoping that you do, because if you do, then you just pull your papers in March when the election papers are pulled, and then your name will be on the ballot in May, and if you're unopposed, which, I don't think you'll be getting arm wrestled to, for the position, as much as it's an important position. Some of the roles just don't get a lot of people pulling papers. So we're always thrilled to have somebody new step up and be engaged and, hear their perspectives. It's great. Did anybody have any questions? Mr. Heel?
Thank you very much, Peter, for stepping up to the plate when Laura twisted your arm a little bit.
I don't think I said that. I just asked, yeah.
One question that is always asked is about conflict of interest. Do you have any conflicts with anything in town, anything that you can think of that might become a problem that you...
I don't. In my professional life, I'm a program manager with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mass. So there's nothing in my professional life that would cause a conflict of interest here.
Okay.
Very good.
Mrs. Ryan?
Well, I know Pete, and I'm thrilled to have him join the town government. I think this is a really good thing.
That's awesome. And Mr. George?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Ms. Diaz, anything? Any questions?
No.
Okay. Ms. Green, anything you wanted to mention to us?
No, just
Okay.
happy to
Then, Mr. Perkins, I'll let you folks vote first, and then we'll take our vote.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion for the Board of Health members to appoint Mr. Peter Butler to the Board of Health vacancy.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. I'll second that. Roll call? Yes?
Yes.
Well, that worked out well. And I will entertain a motion to appoint Peter Butler to the remaining term for the Board of Health.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, great. Well, it's a done deal, Mr. Butler. That's fantastic. Thanks for stepping up. You'll get an official letter from our office, but in the interim, you are going to want to get sworn in by our town clerk, and then I'm sure Mr. Perkins and Ms. Cochio will fill you in on the schedule for the Board of Health.
Thank you very much.
All right, so did you want to close your meeting?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor? Okay.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Congratulations, thank you.
All right, take care. All right, so that moves us on, and Mr. Madden, where are you? I'm sorry. If you don't mind, we're going to just get to the business of the Plymouth County, and then you are next on the docket, okay?
It's going to give me money, I just wish you aside.
That was sort of our thought process. Thank you for that. Said from the man doing our financial analysis, so,
Mr. Van, can we move that without causing you any disruption?
You want to just push it down, whatever you want.
You sure, will that be okay?
I don't.
Do not want to. Then I'm not going to do that. No, sirree.
It's worth finding out, John. Go ahead.
Is it finding out? All right, there we go, click.
Oh, you broke the screen.
Did no such thing. Senator, right there, I'll move forward.
Thank you, sir.
No worries.
all right, well, I want to thank all of you for coming to our little town. We so seldom get visitors. We're thrilled. A lot of times it's just us speaking to ourselves, wondering, whether it makes sense. So, Ms. Green, did you want to queue up anything further than what you had said initially?
No, basically, just, I will turn it over to these wonderful gentlemen to present the great news to the town of Hanson.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. For you to the membership, my name is Jared Valenzola. I'm Plymouth County Commissioner and Chairman. Pleased to be joined tonight by Commissioner Greg Hanley, Senator Mike Brady, and Treasurer O'Brien. And I know they're going to want to say a couple of words. We do bring the regrets of Commissioner Sandra Wright. She couldn't make it this evening. And we know Representative Cutler and Representative DeCoste both wanted to join as well. I did pass something out before. This is actually the first time I think we've been to one of your meetings in a while. We have been bringing money, don't worry. Lisa and the team have been excellent at engaging both the ARPA program and the CARES Act program. Before that, we've been able to deliver a lot of funds. So before you, just for your own knowledge or education, we did a CARES Act comparison. When we closed out the CARES Act at the end of 2021, we had discovered that Plymouth County's performance with that program far exceeded our expectations. We were able to deliver 50% more dollars to the town of Hanson than the town of Winchendon, a like-sized population outside of Plymouth County. And when you look over on the back, you'll see a full comparison county-wide. And you will see that like-sized communities outside Plymouth County received $45 million. Communities within Plymouth County received $89 million. That also includes test kits that were distributed to your community, as well as $1 million each to the 3 nonprofit hospitals to help support their response to the pandemic. We're really proud of this program. We did it for less than 1%, which obviously meant more money for Hanson, and we delivered it quicker as well than our friends at the state. And that's not a put down of the state, but it's a big state, and they have a lot of work to do. So we've been able to pivot to ARPA now. Of course, CARES closed in 2021, and ARPA came in shortly thereafter. And ARPA, with still having the pandemic in mind, has been more proactive in terms of allowing communities to be able to be more resilient against any future pandemic or public health emergency. So I will leave it at that for my remarks. I will turn over to my colleague, with your permission, Madam Chair, Commissioner, to say a few words, and we'll go down the line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having us here tonight. It has been a remarkable transition over the last 3 years from CARES to ARPA, and from county government then to county government now. And I hope you can mention something before I leave what we discussed earlier. But I will say, with 27 communities, we get to review a lot of applications and the judicious use of funds. And I have to say, the McQuon School project for you, with one-time capital needs, to be using that is probably one of the best uses of funds that we've seen in the ARPA program.
Well, that's
So
music to our ears, and we actually all had McQuon School bricks on our desk at the beginning of the meeting. So, yeah, that's exactly why we used it for that, because it is one time. Yeah.
And honestly, that's the best use of the money, is the one-time funds, and you did it as revenue replacement. But more importantly, for me, having been a former selectman right next door in Pembroke, it's the quality of life programs that usually take it on the chin when it comes to budget crisis. Everyone has school, police, fire, and DPW. But when you're going to cut, sometimes it's the quality of life issues that make Hanson a great place to raise a family. And you've always had, between Camp Kewanee and the sports programs that you do in this town, being competitor next year and next door, and having started the Pembroke American Legion program, where we had a lot of Hanson kids it's just, I'm so refreshed to see it. I want to thank you and applaud you for that, because the residents are really the beneficiaries of the money. But I will say, we wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of our legislators. And one of the only guys that backed us at the time, when the governor wasn't, was Mike Brady. And that was under CARES. And then since CARES, we've been able to introduce 4 other counties to the program with respect to the administration of funds. And if you look back to what the legislature had to do under the Baker administration, they quarantined the money and the use of it. So I want to thank the senator and just kind of transition it right to him. Because
Well, and I
he's
think
just
that's
as
an important point. You guys were not on the board at the time that this happened, but there was a bit of a tug of war of who was going to administer the funds, and people were, you know, all kinds of talking points here and there. And we just knew that we felt comfortable with Plymouth County because we have a relationship. We know who they are. We know they're going to look out for our best interest. And so for us, it was a no-brainer. And so I'm happy to see you lived up to what we were expecting and then some. So with that, Mr. Brady, we'll turn it over.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the board, the select board, and our friends in Hanson. I'm very honored to represent the town of Hanson and several towns in Plymouth County. My aunt and uncles, I mentioned in the past, live right up the street, and my cousin was a nurse. She's retired, and thank God, because it's a tough business in the medical field now. But it's so important, this money given to Plymouth County. As my friend, County Commissioner Greg mentioned, there was some that the administration at the state level wanted to take the money back from county. And thank God that the Plymouth County Commissioners were able to get the money working with Treasurer O'Brien, because they were much more fiscally responsible getting the money to these cities and towns in the district. And it wouldn't have happened because it was a lot faster than the former administration got the money out. And it's been a godsend, especially in these fiscal times we were suffering. Thank God we passed the sub-budget and got some more money, but this county government works, and they work very well, and I've been working with them. They've been friends of mine for many, many years, and it's so important. And as County Commissioner Greg Hanley mentioned, there was a few others, not just me. I take all the credit, but we were very supportive of the money getting into Plymouth County, and any help I can be moving forward, please let me know. And on a last note, I do want to introduce my, where is he now? My legislative aide, Jimmy Valentin. He's now currently going to Bridgewater State, and he's doing a great job. And he's a guy with the photographs here, the cameras, because it's tough to get young people involved, and he's got a lot of energy, and he's a great member of my staff. So I wanted to just introduce him to the community as well. But thank you. And over to you, Treasurer O'Brien.
Well, I'm glad we didn't limit ourselves to 2.5 minutes.
It was somewhat predictable. It was somewhat predictable.
It really was. Or I wouldn't have been able to say a thing at all. I'm not sure any of us would, but just thrilled to be here this evening. Excited to work with the team in Hanson. But, you know, this takes a lot of effort up and down the electoral vertical axis, and it's been a real team effort from our friends up on Capitol Hill, saying that this money should come out in blocks through the counties, and doing that, making sure that that was a resource. And then our legislative colleagues, I'm a little bit biased, having served up there myself for 10 years, but I think we have one of the best legislative delegations in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Certainly appreciate Senator Brady's efforts. He has always been there to support what we're trying to do, because he knows if there's a challenge, he can pick up the phone and call Treasurer O'Brien, and we'll do what we need to do. We're close by. But I also wanted to mention, certainly, Representative Cutler. As we know, he's got a lot on his plate, but not a day goes by that he's not out there advocating for these communities. And Hanson has been very resourceful. He's got a lot of innovative ideas. Representative Cutler is always calling me and saying, whatever Hanson wants to do, let's try and make that possible. And I think you just have an excellent team here. I've known Lisa for a long time, and she works very hard. She has my number on speed dial. She's not afraid to call and ask questions so that we can work this through the process. And I hope you hear from your team that we've created a process that gives them the assurance that this money is used properly, in the right way, and the way that Hanson needs it used. You're going to be reading articles over the next year as this program finishes up in calendar year 2024 about problems with management of these federal dollars around the country. If you do a quick Google search, you'll see fraud in Maryland and a big problem in California. But one of the things we know, because of the robust program we set up here in Plymouth County to administer these funds, that's not going to happen here. How do we know that? How can I say that with any level of insurance? Because we did it with CARES. Because we were one of the few governmental entities in the United States of America. Think about this. Little small Plymouth County managed $90 million of CARES money without a single problem. Got every penny out to our communities, didn't return anything to the U.S. Treasury, and haven't had a single problem. And I can tell you, we had a lot of eyes on us, and a lot of people reviewing. I've sent out hundreds of thousands of documents to people to review our process. And not only couldn't they find any problems, we ended up winning awards for how we did the program. So we knew that was possible. In fact, I think some of the other counties in our area were a little jealous. They hadn't actually followed our lead, but they learned in an ARPA, as was mentioned by Commissioner Valenzola and Commissioner Hanley. They've adopted our program, and in fact, if you go to www.plymouthcountyarpa.com and look at www.bristolcountyarpa.com or barnstable-countyarpa.com or norfolk-countyarpa.com, you'll see it looks like ours. But what we've been able to do is effectuate economies of scale, driving our costs down, more money back to the town. This project, the town of Hanson is receiving in a moment a real check for $418,801.16. You folks already know the project. Not only is it to take down this building, and I do like the bricks, I hope everybody got one.
We did.
Okay, good,
Yep.
good. But it's for recreational facilities. So it's accomplishing two goals. Taking something that is no longer useful and putting in something that is very needed in these times. And it fit under the rubric with some work and some effort to make sure that it qualified under the ARPA program. So when we deliver this check, you deposit it, you're good, and we'll do all the administrative work for that too. Hopefully that relieves some of the burden on your team, and we just really value that partnership. So up and down, it's just been a great program. I tease the commissioners a little bit. They go out there and ask us to make sure this program is run. They task me with, don't return any money back to the U.S. Treasury. I feel a little bit like the crew of the USS Enterprise where Captain Kirk says, make it so.
Yes.
So they tell me, make it so, Treasurer, and we have to make this happen. But they've been real leaders there in making sure that we have this program, we administer it well, and you get more money.
Well, and you know, our little town of Hanson, a lot of times we feel left behind a little bit because we're small. We're not huge. We don't have all kinds of resources to go chasing after money. But the fact that this, you know, that the county took over this really did relieve a huge burden from us. And I have to also give kudos to Ms. Green for aggressively pursuing the money on our behalf. You know, so I think it was a great team. And we did hear back from Ms. Green that she felt you guys were very responsive in any questions that she had. So we thank you very much for that.
Thank you. So if there's nothing else, we'd love to do a quick photo. We have the bigger check because we learned that people sometimes like to take pictures of the smaller checks. And we'd love to get a picture with the entire board and with all of us, if that's okay. I don't know where would be the best place to do it.
That's fine. What I'm going to do is call, Ryan, I'm going to call a brief recess, just so that is not all caught on video. And then we will do that. So Ryan, we're calling a brief recess. Okay? All right, and we are back, and next on our agenda is a John Madden presentation. Ms. Green, did you want to cue it up?
Absolutely. So, geez, how long was it? Quite a few months ago, we had engaged Mr. Madden to do a financial analysis of the town's finances, our spending habits, expenditures, revenues, things like that. I worked with Mr. Madden in the past in Whitman. He actually did the same type of analysis for Whitman and generated a wonderful report that they follow and they call the Madden Report. Now with that, the town of Hanson is finally going to have their own Madden Report. That will provide us, when he presents us with the final report, with recommendations and suggestions on how we can do things better financially. And with that said, I will turn it over to Mr. Madden.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here tonight. And I also want to thank all the department heads and Ms. Green and your crack town accountant, Eric Kinsher, for all the input that I've gotten. Tonight is an interim report. It basically is exactly what it says. We've reviewed a lot of information. will bury you in a lot of information right now. And then part of it is that based on what I've found so far, based on your input tonight, we'll move forward with recommendations probably for early January. What's important about tonight is that ultimately this is your report. And one of the main reasons I'm here tonight is to not only present you with this information, but to give the board and others an opportunity to assist in its development. Is there an understanding, agreement on the assumptions that I'll bring forward to you tonight? Has the information presented been vetted enough? Are there any other areas, are there any omissions that would be of interest that are not explored in this report? With regard to what you'll see, the historical information is accurate. It's been balanced with the town's books, and that is basically what these trends and what the information is that you'll see tonight based on that sort of information. So these are the steps in the process. We're reviewing and we'll identify financial trends over the last 5 years. We analyze various documents, your tax recap sheets, your Schedule A's, and other such reports submitted to the Department of Revenue. I've met with the town administrator and various department heads, projected forward 5 years of budgets based on trends. The recommendations will actually come later, but right now, understand that what you will see later on in this presentation is based on trends. It's if you look back to Christmas Carol, when the ghost of Christmas future comes and Scrooge wants to know if this is how things will be or can they be changed? Yes, they can be changed. It's not carved in stone. And obviously, the elephant in the room, consider the possibility of the need for an override in the future. You have 4 basic sources of revenue. You have taxation, state aid, local receipts, and I won't say that it's unique to the town of Hanson, but you have, under other financing sources, you have a series of renewable other financing sources. When you look at something like that in a community, it's usually one-time revenue. It shows up, you have a one-time need for it, and you handle it there. But this town has, it's got a fund that helps to take care of the Title V septic program. You have the fire apparatus fund that obviously is fed by ambulance receipts, and it helps fund the ambulance service itself. These are ongoing renewable revenues, and that's what these categories are. They're all renewable revenues. They're not one time. And I like pictures. And this is basically the breakdown of how what your revenue sources look like with regard to your FY24 budget. Clearly, the majority of your revenue comes from taxation, and then local receipts, followed by state aid, your other available funds, and then you do have a small percentage of free cash, which we'll talk about later on, that you use to balance the budget. So that's a little bit of a primer on real estate tax. You might hear some people, you might hear your constituents say, "Oh, look at my tax rate compared to other towns." It's not about the tax rate. It's an understanding that the tax rate is a component that ultimately gets you to your tax bill. And so what we're looking at here is the fact that overall your real estate tax levy is limited by the provisions of Prop 2.5 that have been around for decades now. And your individual tax bill is calculated by whatever your assessed value is, divided by 1,000, times the tax rate. And the levy limit that the town is constrained by is the 2023 levy limit, plus any 2.5% increase. That's a simple mathematical calculation, plus new growth, in addition to a house, new development, anything like that. That would be new growth. That's a specific. If I put a second story on my house, I'm going to be the one taxed. That's not a tax that is spread out among the community as a 2.5% increase would be. In addition to that are any debt exclusions, which are voted by the town, by the community, by popular ballot. So what follows is basically how you get to your FY24 levy limit. You had what was previous in 2023, 635,000 of 2.5, 316,000 of new growth. You have two debt issues out there. You have, I believe it's the fire station, and you have a portion of the school debt which were exempt. And that gives you your allowable levy limit of the $26,891,000. So you have local aid. Your local aid for 24 is $1,700,000. This represents a 4.4% increase over 23. The 5-year average is really 3.24. You'll see whether it's here or in your local receipts, you had a nice 1-year bump in several of the categories, but they're not necessarily reflective of what the 5-year period has been. So when you see, for example, an 89.46% jump in Chapter 70, that's pretty exciting stuff, but really your 4-year average is under 5%. And the unrestricted general governmental aid of 3.2% over 2023, and your average is actually lower than 3%. Basically, a theme that you'll see: 3.24% 5-year average, 4.68 5-year average, 2.96 5-year average. It's minimal growth. Across the board, you might see a spike, but when you look at long-term trends, it's minimal growth, 2 to 3%. Local receipts net of water. The water fund is not considered in any of this because it's an enterprise self-balancing fund. It doesn't play, other than some indirect costs that it pays to the town for services provided by the town. It has really no activity in the ongoing day-to-day of finances of the town. So I'll be referring to these, when you look at these numbers, they'll be net of any water interaction. So, again, local receipts, they were up 22.4% over 22, $563,000. A lot of money. It's a lot of money. A couple of things going on. I don't mean to jump over motor vehicle excise, but if I could, in FY23, you introduced the meals excise, new revenue. $82,000 of that 563 is brand new. $82,000. The item below it, investment income, $227,000 in investment income. That represents a 1,326% increase over 22. $211,000 in investment income. So between those two, 3 of the $500,000, it's really an anomaly. I'll go back. So motor vehicle excise, 58% of the total local receipts is your motor vehicle excise. It actually went down over FY22. But the 5-year average has about a 1% increase year over year. So it's gone up, but it has its dips and such. The other financing sources that we talked about, these are the renewable other financing sources. You have the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation. It offsets the ambulance operation and purchase replacement of ambulance equipment. Collected about $791,000 in FY23. That's a spike over previous years. In conversations with the chief, he explained to me that the town purchased an ambulance billing software. I'm familiar with that software, and because I'm less inclined to think that this is a spike in the collections. These online ambulance billing software is real-time, online, pushes you to the front, and the process is like Medicare, Medicaid, and the private insurance much quicker than if you were doing it by hand. In FY24, For the operating budget, $725,000 was utilized for operating expenses, not for capital, but for operating expenses. I am aware that in October, the town appropriated, I believe, another $25,000 to offset the way, if it's not clear to some of you, the way that the ambulance billing works is they take a percentage of the revenue. Or they don't take a percentage of the revenue, but they charge you a percentage of the revenue that gets collected. And that's where the fees come from, usually around 3 or 4%. Excuse me. Again, it's a great return on the type of revenue you get in. If you find that you're having to raise that particular line item, it's because you're collecting money.
Yeah.
It's not a bad trade. And then you have your Title V septic program, receipts reserve. It's established to provide offset funding for replacement of residential septic systems program. The costs cover the long-term debt associated with the program, debt principal and interest. And in FY '24, $152,000 and a couple of extra zeros that I will fix were used to offset the debt and interest expenses. These two you can count on year after year to absorb either all or some part, as opposed to a one-time revenue source for a one-time expense. Speaking of one-time expenses, free cash. As we noted earlier, you're utilizing some free cash, the $357,000 for FY '24, to balance your budget. It's an indication, a clear indication of expenses, ongoing expenses, outdistancing renewable revenue. And this is what the town is doing to close the gap. That's not a value judgment of how the revenues are coming in or the importance of the expenses that are being appropriated. It's just the fact that there is a gap. The Division of Local Services would suggest that as a non-recurring revenue source, free cash should be restricted to paying one-time expenditures, funding capital projects, or replenishing other reserves. In addition to that, bond rating agencies, they're going to look at something like this. And it won't be the end of the world, but obviously, ideally, they're looking to invest in communities where their revenues match their expenditures. The use of free cash doesn't help. So if it was used under the best practices of the DLS, they would recommend that you just use it for capital items, basically. Again, the pictures. If you take your appropriations for FY '24, this is how they break down by functionality: general government versus public safety versus education. You've got your library and recreation, human services. All the departments that are grouped by certain categories, and obviously education is a major factor in there. So the last 3 years average, because it's kind of difficult with COVID to really get a good solid feel further back there. But here are your 3-year average increases in those categories as we refer to. General government, almost 5%, public safety over 7%, education over 7%, public works 13%, human services 12%. Now, keep in mind, those percentages are close, but in pure dollar value, human services is a smaller piece of the pie than public works. Library and recreation, 5%. Debt service is going down, and it naturally will go down until you issue more debt. The whole concept of debt is that you make one large principal payment every year, and you have declining interest, because as principal goes down, obviously, the interest that's being charged on that principal becomes less. So that's why you will always see in municipal debt, basically you will always see receding debt as it goes through. And then your employee benefits and insurance, property, liability, that sort of thing, 7.26%.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Mr. Mann, what is included in human services?
Human service would be veterans, council on aging,
Okay.
perhaps celebrations off the top of my head, that would be the types of departments that are in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So again, the FY24 operating budget, net of water, 32 million. It's a 5.88% increase over 23. The town increase, 2.55. Vocational education, 7.03. And the Whitman Hanson Regional School District, 4.8. I made a note here that the 3-year average increase in the Department of Education local contribution determination, if you remember the presentation that Mark Abrams made a couple of months ago, that calculation, while just shy of I of Newton, tail of lizard, there really is a formula there. They're determining, basically, they're recommending certainly that your local contribution over the last 3 years has been 4.39%. Thought it was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So your other budgetary highlights, the regional Old Colony Call Center, that's your regional emergency 911. There is an increase over 23 in FY24 of $200,000. It was paid for by 911 funds for the first 3 years. Then you go to 50%, then 75%, then 100%. So the way this would work is in 24, it's going to be $200,000. In 25, $300,000. And in 26, $400,000. And after that, it'll be the same inflationary effects as any other department would have. The Plymouth County retirement increase over FY23 is 11.23%. That would represent increases in salaries, new positions. It's the assessment, the pension assessment for those employees that are eligible. And they also, as a member of that esteemed organization, they gave out a cost of living increase this year that was a little higher than most, but
And wasn't that a little retro too? Wasn't there a retro portion to that? I think there was.
I'm not sure if there was a retro portion.
No, the retro COLA, remember for the, yeah.
Okay. Eric, you're pretty in tune with that.
I just go to probably cost extra $50,000 for it.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, it's something that we're building in as we go forward. But yeah, there was a jump in there with how far retro was, just don't let my wife know. And then you have snow and ice increase over 2023 of 0. You're not the only community that does something like this. Chapter 44, Section 31D states something to the effect that any community that appropriates an equal or larger appropriation than the prior year is allowed to legally deficit spend from this account, which makes sense. You don't know how much it's going to snow. You don't know how cold it's going to get. You don't know how much ice it's going to get. So communities are safe to simply appropriate for short periods of time, because eventually you've got to be realistic about the whole thing. The price of salt goes up, sand goes up, contractors go up. But 4431D does give you the ability to level fund and deficit spend legally, knowing that you have to cover that deficit. But it's not the same as if you just overrun some random account elsewhere in your chart. So with all that having been said, moving forward now, projected revenue increases. New growth is fixed. I had a series of wonderful conversations with Lee Gamache, your assessor. What a handle she has on growth and development in this town.
Yeah,
she really is. And so when I say it's fixed, in our projections, she's done the best she can with her expertise, excuse me, to calculate when development's going to come online, when a certificate of occupancy is going to be issued, how long that particular project may take, because you can tax it at a certain rate prior to completion, But then once you get that certificate of occupancy, everything changes and you get 100% opportunity there. Chapter 70, as we saw, it runs around 3%. We had a good year last year, but again, historically, it's not there. Neither is the UGA money, the undistributed general government aid. Some of you who have been around for a while might remember that as lottery and charity games. That's what that number used to, that was what that category used to be referred to. Veterans benefits, we've seen a slow decline. Frankly, I'd like to think that it's a glass half full situation, that there's employment out there and that the need for the benefits just isn't what it was. That's what we would hope. Again, motor vehicle excise, these are conservative, but they're based on the on what I've seen in trending. So I said, well, gee, motor vehicle was 3%, and now he's saying 1%. But you lost money this year. You know, who's to say it can't happen again? A chip issue, people just deciding that they're going to get longer period out of their car. Penalties and interest on taxes, gangbusters. It's not necessarily big money, but year over year over year, has been a tremendous collection rate on this. Payments in lieu of taxes, those are payments made by entities that aren't necessarily taxed in what you would consider the traditional manner, like our homes would be, and hence the title, payment in lieu of taxes. I don't know what the entities are here, but they seem to have been going up fairly consistently. Fees are just that. You know, anything that you might come to town or require of any department that charges a fee. Rentals, you'll probably be more aware of the rental properties that the town owns than I am, but that information, that's been climbing. Other departmental revenue is basically a catch-all for what people might not know what to call something else. Licenses and permits, they've been increasing, and I would expect that they're increasing, because if you're going to see the type of development that's coming, they require permits to get it done, whether it's plumbing, electric, construction, there they are. Earnings on investments, you're not going to get 1,300% increase every year. It's not going to happen. And any other categories that you don't see up there, just level funded. They're either too erratic or just not worth necessarily adding into the equation. And these expenses are the projected based on historical information of where we see the budget's going. They obviously reflect what we looked at earlier in the presentation. Your state and county assessments, you were privileged today to receive over $400,000 from the state and county. Terrific, but the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Everybody hears about the cherry sheet. We spent a lot of time talking about Chapter 70 and veterans benefits and the UGA money, the lottery charity games money. But they also take it away. Mosquito control projects, motor vehicle surcharge processing. There are things that the state and the county charge for, and they take it off, they net it off those cherry sheet receipts. And they've been increasing at about 1 3/4% a year. Abatements and exemptions, they are fixed. Again, kudos to your assessor. The abatements and exemptions, it's a second category that frankly the town doesn't vote on. You go to town meeting and you vote on how much the police department's going to get, how much the school's going to get. But there are other items called amounts to be raised that the town doesn't have a say in. State and county assessments, you have to pay them, but you don't get to vote on them. And abatements and exemptions, you set a tax rate. Remember, going all the way back to page 1, the levy, the new growth, the 2.5, all of that. Well, towns offer exemptions for various provisions, veterans, handicap. There are several categories like that. The assessor probably has them on file in her office, that you can go in and apply as a veteran and receive an exemption. Some of them are up to $1,500. But you got to understand, the town said we're going to raise $25 million. Okay? If we give somebody back or we relieve their tax bill of $1,500, well, we said we're going to pay $25 million in taxes. So where does that come from? It comes from your abatements and exemptions, which is raised on the recap sheet. It's all part of the tax setting process. And you transfer the money from there. So it fills that void. And the exemptions are the good news thing. You also have the senior tax work-off program. That's paid for from this account. And then you also have abatements. You know, somebody comes in and says, you taxed me for a second floor bathroom and it's a walk-in closet. So there's the abatement process also. Worked on that with the assessor. She took into consideration the revaluation years coming up, the fact that there's construction and things like that going on. And so when I refer to it as fixed, it's because she sat down and she calculated out the next 5 years what, in her best estimate, highly educated estimate, is what it's going to be. So we've given you the projected revenue and the projected expense increases based on historical trends. More pictures. And here we are. 425, that $1.2 million deficit was discussed, I believe, a few weeks ago at a presentation. What we're comparing here, if you take a look at the categories, is renewable revenues on the top half versus ongoing expenses below. And if you look at line C, that's where you are. Now again, the Ebenezer Scrooge, is this the way things have to be? No. In fact, I know that I've been talking with Lisa throughout this whole process, and I saw that and she gave me a copy of the commencement memo that went out with the budgets, and that you're looking to a level service and 2% increases for certain categories. It's a huge first step. You saw the increases that we were using on the expense side. They're unsustainable. I don't think that's a bone of contention. They're unsustainable increases. The increases that, the purposes behind the increases were reasonable. Perhaps Hanson had fallen a little bit behind in their ability to compete with other communities to keep qualified, talented people. I mean, that's important. But once you get them here, you got to give them an environment that works, and it sounds like that's what's going on. So that is my understanding, is some of what's been going on behind the scenes that created some of those large expenditures. Again, you get a great return for your buck, but the regional 911 center comes at a cost. So you're going to see those $100,000 jumps each year. So there's where we are right now, based on the past. And I know it's not a pretty picture. You need a lot more $418,000 checks to right the ship if that's the way it continues. But as I said before, that's not the way it's continuing. Again, more pictures if you like it. That's not the way it's going. The town administrator has already taken steps to close that gap. It's a recommendation, it was a discussion that was had that said clearly we can't continue on with those expenses. Now what we do is we go through this and look at, are we using our other financing sources as we should? Is there room for growth there? I think it's important, I keep coming back to the expenditure side, but if you're going to ask somebody for more money, you better be able to prove to them that you've had some belt tightening. I mean, the last thing you want to do is you know, ask somebody to help fund what would be considered a luxurious lifestyle or something, right?
Yep.
It's like, no. Show me where you've cut. Show me where you've tried to hold the line, and I'll be more interested in what you have to say. Would I rule out an override? No, I wouldn't. I just think that that is something in the future. I think that it'll be mitigated from what we see there because of the steps that have been taken already by management. But it's just clear that, and you're not alone. You're not alone. Just expenditures, just the inflation rate, the cost of doing business. It's difficult. And so that is as far as basically I have come. We've looked at what the average annual increases have been. We know they're not sustainable. We're using free cash to supplement the budget, and we need to stop. Discipline and realistic budget requests and approvals already being kicked in. And an operating override is probably ultimately going to be necessary, but based on what we can recommend and what get accepted and what procedures are already being put in place, what can we do to mitigate that type of an override? As I said, oh my God, so long ago, I said part of the importance of this meeting is for you who live and breathe here to tell me what I missed, where I might need to dig deeper, what layers of the onion do I need to peel back, or question certainly anything that I presented to you tonight.
Well, I think one thing that that keeps coming up in all of our discussions with the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District is that Whitman has got a number that they are sticking with. Like, we cannot ever go, if you increase the budget by more than whatever it is, say 4%, 2%, 3%, like, that's not sustainable for us because our growth is this. We don't have that tool in our toolbox right now, so we've just sort of, you know.
It will be one of the recommendations.
Yeah, okay.
I do need to reach out to them after where we are now because, you know, we talked about where the minimum required contribution is at. But clearly, even if you back out transportation or debt, you're clearing that bar in street shoes by, I think, nearly 30%. You know, is it something that everybody's become comfortable with now? I don't know, but you can't continue that. And that was the conversation that was had in Whitman, is that, no, we need to look at this as what can you sustain? That's what we have to, that's what we have to identify. The difference between Whitman and here is we weren't looking at an override situation there. We are now. And what you need to be careful of, and I'm not suggesting that would even be the conversation, is that, well, if you're going for an override, why don't you ask for a little more because, you know, we need more in the schools. No, that's not how it works. If we're going to pull in the reins on each and every one of our departments that we have control over, then we need you to come along with us and understand that, yes, you have needs, but so does police, so does fire, so does the Council on Aging. But there's only so much to go around. So what happens there is that you say, okay, what is reasonable? If the state says 5% growth in their minimum contribution is reasonable, then, just for discussion purposes, then why can't the budget increase be limited to that? And if that still becomes, I mean, once we start running some models for recommendations, if that still seems unsustainable, then we have a further conversation. And then it might be a conversation that you have to bring Whitman in also, because you have to agree what you're going to, I mean, the school district's going to come back with a number for you and say, Whitman, you owe this, you know, Hanson, you owe this. Well, if one town looks at the number and goes, oh, that's awesome, well, now you've got quite a conversation to have, especially if the other community doesn't quite feel the same way about it. But what we'll be able to do is provide you with a number, an estimate that says, look, this is what we can live with.
And there may be extenuating circumstances, we're not saying like we're gonna be so, but it seems to me as though we're doing it a bit backwards, which is we kind of wait for them to tell us what they need and then we figure out instead of us saying, this is what we can afford, make a case if make a very compelling case if you are going to need more than this. Which is, we've got to be consistent across all of the departments in doing that. So,
And that comes down to the sooner you begin the dialogue, the better.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, we don't get the state numbers until there's not a lot going on. If you're worried about, well, gee, the number comes in at 3.5 and we estimated 3, fine. They don't vary that much.
Okay.
Not that you can't begin the process early and adjust if something of significance comes up. State aid doesn't change much. Now, they have other moving parts that I'm not as familiar with, whether it's circuit breaker or transportation reimbursement, that sort of thing. But they know if it's going to be 80%. They know if it's going to be 90%. Earlier on, I think, than at times that they let on, but I get that. It's part of their process. But the sooner you can begin the dialogue, the sooner that they understand that, look, this is what we're looking for. This is how, if we could agree on this number, everyone can survive. Nobody's going to be happy. It's like a 50-50 proposition, right? Half are going to hate you and half are going to love you. But we feel like we can continue into the not-so-distant future with this type of an agreement.
Any questions, guys? Ed?
I have just a couple questions. Thank you very, very much for this report. This is eye-opening, not always in a good way, but I'm looking at the spreadsheet page, the second to last page, and it starts on fiscal year 25, and then the page afterwards shows the line graph and everything. For my purposes, it would seem like it would help to see a couple years before that, like this year and the previous years, to see how we functioned the previous years, and then the projection. These are all projected numbers for the most part. Is that something we would do with our accountant, or is that something you would be able to provide, or is that something of interest to the rest of the board, or is that?
I hid the columns.
What is it?
He hid the columns. He has it. He has it on the spreadsheet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's easy.
Boy, I give that one away.
You should have told us that.
Cost of living increase. Sure, I mean, yeah, I can, because what this is a presentation of, moving forward at these. But we have a few years back that we could expand that on.
And this is really showing us, you mentioned about the belt tightening, that we really are gonna need to focus on that as a town. And I'm not sure where that can be coming from, but we are gonna need to figure that out, or go with the override. And there's a lot of people that do not want an override, so if not, we've gotta tighten our belts.
I understand that, and a lot of people, I will say that sometimes the argument, if you will, the point that is made is that, why am I paying more for the same services? Well, the paradigm shift is, there are some cases where if you don't pay more, you might not get those services.
Yes, yeah.
I know, I deal with a couple of smaller communities. They might have the police station closed certain times of the day. I mean, that's what happens. You're not alone in trying to make this work. You really aren't. And like I said, it's not always a question of paying more for the services that you're receiving. It's, if you don't, you may lose a lot of those services.
I know.
Any other questions, Mr. Hill? Mr. George? Okay. Mrs. Ray?
No, I'm just, you know,
Letting it all percolate?
it's percolating, you
Yes.
know.
There's a lot of information.
And I'm
Yep.
also, you know, reviewing in my mind the explosions that I'm gonna hear when the override question rears its head. But all you have to do is look at your grocery bill, look at your gas bill. Everything goes up, and it's not just the same thing, it just comes up in the
Into
government the
Mr.
same way.
Madden's point.
Yeah.
So the price,
Exactly.
everything goes up.
It all goes up.
You've got the same amount of money, then services have got to get cut. Otherwise, you've got to raise more money. It's a math problem. It's,
Yes.
you know,
Somebody pointed out, you're talking about state government, and you have Prop 2.5, which is limiting you to, 2.5% increase in your levy, but you have DESE recommending 5% increases to your minimum contribution.
that's an excellent
There's
point.
math that doesn't work.
Yeah. Especially when it's 50% of your budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Okay, so next steps.
Well, I want to make sure that town management doesn't hear recommendations for the first time, so I
I'm
wanna
sorry,
make sure
Mr.
that what we
Madden,
bring-
I just asked that question, and then I realized that Mr. Melisi had his hand up, and I completely ignored him. Yeah,
The one thing I did notice on that spreadsheet at the bottom is the capital improvement expenses, so CIP, I'm not sure if that was capital improvement. So with that downfall of budget, you're also not funding the 1% of capital improvement that you're supposed to be funding, correct?
Correct. What the purpose of this exercise was to look at the operating budget itself.
Okay.
For example, any free cash in 2024 above the 300,000 plus in free cash that was used for balancing the budget went toward capital.
Yeah.
But the more you use free cash to fund the ongoing expenses of your utilities, your salaries, et cetera, the less you're putting into capital improvement. And then eventually you have infrastructure problems, technology problems, and there's this erosion of that infrastructure that you need.
we already had the erosion, and Mr. Melisi and his committee have been trying to right the ship, so,
Yeah, I was a little
Yeah.
startled
Yeah.
when I didn't see the 1% on there because that's a.
No, I don't. This was purely operating budget related. As we move forward toward recommendations, one thing that I know I'll recommend is that there's something called debt roll-off. If you remember, what I mentioned and what you saw was the debt was going down, that one particular year, by 12%. So that means your debt budget, your fixed long-term debt and interest was reduced. Well, it's a good idea, I think it's a good idea, and that's why I recommend it, that 12%, which is now rolling up into your operating budget, no, reserve it. Because that 12% might be $25,000. It might be $30,000. Maybe it doesn't sound like a lot. But the second year, perhaps the debt rolled off another 12%. So now you've got that $25,000 from the previous year and another now $50,000. Now you're looking at the potential for a decent one-time purchase, or a couple of years out, a small debt issue without having to go to the voters, that sort of thing. That protection of that part of your levy that you've been using for debt, not excluded debt, because I want to make that clear. I understand that excluded debt, once it rolls off, it goes away forever. But that debt that's voted within the levy, rather than let it bleed out into the operating budget, if possible, reserve that for future capital needs. Because the DOR and their best practices will tell you that a certain amount of your levy should be used for capital. You're not in that position right now, except for debt. But if you reserve some of that debt, because remember, if $25,000 of levy that went toward debt is suddenly available, and you buy something for $25,000, because you bought something, because it was one time, the $25,000 is available the next year. That's the beauty of it. Once it goes up in the operating budget, it's lost forever, because it's in an ongoing expense. That electric bill is going to be there year after year. But if you take that levy and you use it on one-time purchases until perhaps it's big enough to do a debt issue within the levy or whatever. So I think that, I think that somewhat addresses what you're looking at as an exercise, as a process that reserves levy.
That's an intriguing concept. And did anybody from FinCom, we have our FinCom members here, did anybody, Mr. Sullivan, anybody have any questions for Mr. Madden? Okay. Mr. Kincher, questions? Ms. Green?
No?
Okay. All right. So, next steps. Work with Ms. Green, right? Okay.
And we'll be coming back with recommendations.
And what's our general ETA on that? Knowing that we have to make some decisions relatively quickly about an override and whether we're having one, and if so, what size that would be.
Well, if I could, one of the things that you have to look at is 25 is out of the barn.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of doing two budgets at this part of the process, probably not. And while this is geared toward 25 through 29,
it's really 26.
Probably at this point.
Mr. Kincher.
I think the next step will probably be, John provided the spreadsheet. He projected out FY25 based upon ratios. Now that we get the FY25 budgets in, I'll put the actuals in, and that'll be a good, so we'll have all the department requests, we'll have the revenue projections, we'll get a true shortfall, and then we'll, then we'll share that with John, say, hey, these are the requests. And so we're working with real numbers, and then we'll just go from there. It'll be interesting to find out, like I put in a one budget, and I saw what you projected for a percentage. The actual request that came in was higher than what you even projected. So hopefully that doesn't hold true. But we'll have to, so that's what we'll do. So the next step is, because we can use it for this year's budget, we'll just put it all in, the actual budgets, and then from there we'll see where the gap is. And then from there, the next step is, all right, if we were to, what do we need to do to the budgets to make it a balanced budget with no override? I think that's a good exercise. And the way we've done it in the past, like in other towns, is we just took, if the deficit's 1.5 million and school's 50%, we'd say, all right, in order for us to meet, this is one way to do it, the simplistic way. What would you do with $750,000 less money? Well, how would that affect you? You know what I mean? Same with the police fire.
Yep.
It's that exercise. Then you can say, is that palatable to balance the budget? Then, like a value decision has to be made. Well, that doesn't really seem palatable. Maybe we should go for an override or whatever. But I think that's the next step, is to get the actual budgets in, and then what would have to be cut to get us a balanced budget without no override.
Okay.
And so we'll have a budget with no override, and it's gonna be cuts from the requests that are here, and then we'll know that up front. Then you can say, all right, now we have to make, like, as a town, as a select board or whatever, you say, if override's off the table, in order to balance the budget, we're gonna have to do this. But sometimes decisions get made, so I don't really like those cuts. Then you kind of hold your nose and say, well, we could save a few jobs if we just take free cash this year. That's kind of what happens usually, but we'll see. So
we'll try and create scenarios between.
But that's what FinCom's for. They push back on us using the free card, which they should.
Yeah.
Like we have that natural, that checks and balances where we've got, everybody's looking through a certain lens, and then we're trying to come up with the right solution.
Right.
So,
Mr. Munisi's point, by not putting free cash in the projections, you have your capital budget. So whatever the free cash is, you can use that for capital projects.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay?
Yep. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Real quick, somebody asked about, would this stuff be available at the end? Eric's using it right now.
Yeah.
In real time as he plugs in the 25 budget. Once it goes through the process and is voted at a town meeting, everything else gets updated. So yeah, we're using it now.
All right. It's a lot to digest, as they say.
Yes.
But it is.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Madden.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
All right, now, we've got quite a few items left on the agenda, but we're going to take a couple things out of order. Mr. Melissi, may I prevail upon you to allow us to do a couple of quick little appointments, and then we'll get to the Camp Kawani? Okay, great. So we have got Mr. Stewart, Alex. I'm not trying to presume, but I'm thinking you may be here for the Recreation Committee discussion, which will not be happening this evening. Thanks, good to see you guys. Because Mr. Weeks was supposed to do a presentation, but he is not with us tonight. Okay? So we likely will have that on our January agenda.
January, thank you.
And I'm sorry if I had noticed that you were there and put two and two together, I would have said that earlier.
Oh, no, it's okay. Nevertheless,
It's always lovely to see you, and you're certainly welcome to stay. Okay, so that brings us to the appoint Paul Serra to Community Preservation Committee. Mr. Serra, did you want to sit in our Inquisition seat right here? So you guys have got an application in your packet from Mr. Serra. And just by the way of a little bit of background, I had had a conversation with Mr. Serra where I had highly encouraged him to apply for the open position on community preservation. And I said to him it was probably one of my favorite committees that I've ever served on, because they actually have money that can't be used for anything except for community preservation. So nobody can raid it, and you're doing open space and historic restoration, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a great committee. So that was my pitch to Mr. Serra, and he fell for it hook, line, and sinker. So here he is with his application. I have had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Serra, and in the interest of full disclosure, we were both in 4-H together as kids in the same 4-H club. Mr. Serra is also Kurt Tarvis's stepdad.
That's why I recognize you.
So very involved, and I believe Ms. Green had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Serra and found him to be level-headed and engaged and wanting to get back to the town. Mr. Serra, what say you? What would you like to tell us about yourself?
I newly retired from the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department, and I've got some time on my hands, and definitely interested in the historical preservation of the town.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions for Mr. Serra?
I mean, I guess you kind of already mentioned it, but it's the common question that comes up. Are there any conflicts that you're aware of, or that you think it might be an issue?
No.
He even completed his conflict training.
I see that. I saw that already.
I've done it so many times.
Yep.
Thank you for doing it early. Yeah.
Any questions on this side of the table, or no?
member of the Legion?
I knew you were going to ask that. I was like, he's gonna try to recruit him for the Legion. I knew it.
There you go.
He's got his Navy hat on.
I knew it. All right, you guys can chat about that afterwards, offline. Okay. You've got his contact info now,
do.
so, yep.
Watch out.
All right, no problem.
All right, if there are no further questions, then I will entertain a motion to appoint Paul Serra to the Community Preservation Committee. Do we know what the term is for that? I believe it's taking Patty Norton's position, which she resigned, but I don't know when that expired. What we could do is for this evening, we could appoint him for the remainder, for up until May of 2024. And then you can get back to us, and if the date is past that, then we can amend our motion tonight. But at least that will allow him to get sworn in and start getting active. So I will entertain a motion to appoint him for the period ending in May of 2024. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for applying. We appreciate it. You will get an official letter from our office, and then you need to be sworn in by the town clerk. I believe that they are actually meeting tomorrow evening. So if you can get that all popping tomorrow, your first official meeting could be tomorrow night.
Oh, okay.
So, and I know Mr. Kemet knows about you applying, and Ms. Cohen, who's also on the committee, knows that you had applied, so it's a great group.
I can go to the town hall tomorrow and get one.
Yep, can you guys give the letter to Beth tomorrow? Or tonight?
Not tonight. I would say, give me a little bit of time in the morning.
Okay.
So I can just kind of get through everything I need to do. But
Yeah, I've got some stuff to do in the morning anyway, so.
Okay, great. So, just wait, pop by the office, she can give it to you, and then you can just head right over to Beth at the town clerk's office. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then we have, Stephanie Pritchard has withdrawn her application for McQuon reuse. We have appoint Thomas Labo. He is not here this evening, but I had an opportunity to speak to him, and Miss Green did as well. I did not know him before having that conversation, but he seems like a fresh new voice who wants to be engaged and involved, and I'm all for that. He has two little people, 8 years old and 9 years old, I believe he said, and he's very interested in what happens with that piece of property. So I will entertain a motion to appoint Thomas Labo to the McQuon School Reuse Committee. And again, I'm not sure what the expiration on that, okay, so that would be for June 1st? That's when we do the?
June 30th.
June 30th,
So from
okay.
now until June 30th,
Yep,
and
yep.
then reappoint him?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, great. And Mr. Labo, you can go to the town clerk and get sworn in. I'm saying this to the empty seat.
Someone here that I
but-
didn't see.
No, no. Okay, and then that brings us to the ever-patient Mr. Melissi about Camp Kawani. And thank you very much for allowing us to take things so out of order.
I feel like I'm here every other week.
Yes.
You want me up there? Or?
This is one of the.
Whatever's comfortable for you.
Inquisition.
Yeah.
I have to, so.
Oh, boy, okay.
So we raised our rates at the camp. You guys should have a packet in front of you with explaining those rates. So
Yep.
that's one item that we have here. Is there any questions about any of those rates? I unfortunately don't have the packet in front of me. Yeah, please, thank you.
Yeah, I think it would be good, just for the sake of transparency, to maybe highlight some of them.
Absolutely. I won't.
But I'll tell you everything you're talking about.
You don't have a list of the actual rates that
I do, give me a minute.
So I guess the first order that we have on here is appoint Chris Hoffman as the Camp Quality Facilities Manager. As you guys know, Roger said that he is going to be, thank you very much, going to be retiring sometime in the beginning of the year. Very unfortunate, but Roger's been a great asset down at the camp. He's going to be there for a couple more months while he's training Chris to go through and kind of get him up to all the camp protocols. We interviewed Chris, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, Lisa, if you had a chance to interview him as well.
I was not, no.
So Roger and Dory interviewed Chris. He's a member of the Conservation Committee. They have nothing but raving reviews about him. So we would like to, and he lives right down the road. Literally can walk to the camp from his house. So he was really the perfect candidate that we were looking for. Wants to do the 19 and a half hours a week. And he gets along with Roger, which is great. So.
Well, first I want to say Roger has been an absolute rock star.
Yes.
And I am absolutely grateful for all of the big and little things that he did there that maybe weren't so apparent to everybody every day. But in the aggregate, it's so clear how much he cared about the town and that camp.
Yep.
And so we're super appreciative of all of the things that he did there.
Yeah, Roger was absolutely phenomenal from the day that we had him on. He knew exactly what he was doing. He's fixed a whole bunch of stuff at the camp, has a kind of a forward-thinking vision when it comes to the camp and what we want it to be. He's going to be sadly missed, but he's moving down south. So, I'm sure he's not going to miss us too much.
No, probably not.
But so once his house sells, then he's going to be moving down south, and that's when he'll, depart the camp as well. And yeah, we still got a couple months before Roger leaves. I don't want to talk about him too much because I don't want him to, sell his house tomorrow and go. So I told him I'd even buy his house off him and hold it for a couple months.
So, Mr. Hoffman, I will take your recommendation. I do want to make sure that he looks into, because I know a lot of times the camp has to have things passed by the Conservation Commission. So just want to make sure that there's checks and balances and that he's really fleshed out whether he ought to recuse himself from those and checked with ethics on that
He is an
situation.
associate member of Conservation.
Okay,
So
all
he
right.
does not have the
Okay,
whatever he's
great. Okay.
He is, he's a smart man. If
Okay.
he needs to recuse himself, then I'm sure he'll do just that.
Okay, I just think it's always, historically, we've had enough issues that it's just always something that we talk about, so.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel like, him being on the conservation is actually a positive for us. Because,
I think,
the Conservation Commission obviously knows that he's gonna do the work to their standards.
Yep.
We know that, we work great with conservation anyway, but, having him on board as well kind of bridges that gap that we have before, so.
Now, have you had a chance to talk to?
I work with Chris
And
on
you
the conservation.
recommend him? Yeah.
I don't think there's ever gonna be a problem with him. He's
Okay,
a
all
wonderful
right.
gentleman,
He mows,
very
sneeze
active.
bogs, he does all that stuff.
Yep.
He's a great guy. So we're excited to have him start and then train with Roger.
All right, excellent,
Congratulations.
excellent.
And the rate for that is going to be $20 an hour, just so you're aware. I mean, I know that doesn't have to be approved by wage and personnel,
No.
but just so you're aware.
Yeah.
That is the rate that the commission has set for him.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to appoint Chris Hoffman for, I guess, are we saying 19 hours per week? Is that what it is?
19 and a half hours.
19 and a half hours per week.
Almost.
Almost 20, a little bit below that.
Yes, I'm trying to look for his official title. What?
He's the,
Yeah, Camp Quantities Facilities.
Camp Quantities Facilities Manager.
so moved.
When will he begin?
Yeah, thank you, Ed.
He will probably begin tomorrow or Thursday after the appointment.
All right, so effective this evening, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So was that a second?
Yep.
Okay,
Second.
great. Any further, Ms. Green?
Yeah, so actually, he'll need to make an appointment with Stacy Reed to come in and fill out his paperwork.
Okay, yeah, I think Dory already told him about that, so so it might not be tomorrow, it might be, a couple days from now. So.
We're saying it's effective tonight, of course, contingent on all the paperwork and blah, blah, blah. So whatever
If
the,
he even wants to get paid.
yeah, exactly. We don't need to know how the sausage is made, so we're good on that. Okay, so, all in favor? Okay, great. All right, that brings us to the Camp Quantities fee schedule.
Yeah, so I'm going to run through these schedules real fast. Unfortunately, I don't have the historic fee rates in front of me, but these are the new fee rates that we have here. A couple exciting things that we added. So the wedding reception and vow renewal is $8,500. Additional wedding reception or vow renewal hours is $250 an hour. Wedding and vow renewal ceremony on site is $750, and that's when the bride and groom have their rehearsal on the back deck of the lodge, and they have the ceremony out back, all set up, the windows are open, it looks really nice. South-end camping with the bridal and groom's cottage, so that's $1,500. So everybody here might be familiar with the bridal cottage. We actually have another cottage on the other side of the lodge. It used to be the crafts cabin. And we actually turned that into the groom's cottage now, so we can rent that out and make that as a profitable structure that's there.
Yep.
So, great place for people to hang out and, before the wedding and everything like that. So, that's now included on the South End camping for $1,500. The bridal and groom's cottage daily rental is $150. That's $150 for each per day. Is there any questions about the wedding celebrations, the vow renewals?
No, I assume you checked competitively, and I think we're still probably way under what other, similar facilities are.
What's the difference between the 1,500 versus the 150? I mean, what is this like?
Oh, so the 1,500, you actually get the whole south end campground for camping.
Oh,
So like
okay.
you get, after the weddings there, you get to go in the
Everybody can
cabins and
stay.
yeah, you can stay in the cabins
Got
inside. You
it.
get the whole south end campground.
Okay.
Plus the bride and the groom get to stay in those 2 cottages and stuff like that. So yeah, it's actually extremely popular. Like people
Okay.
love to do that. So especially during the warm months. So. We have parties, company events, nonprofit and charitable fundraisers. So we have parties, company events, and nonprofits, graduation, bridal and baby shower, reunion, celebration of life, $750 for 5 hours. Additional fee is $100 per hour. If they want to use our kitchen with the event, so they're not having a caterer that's just coming and dropping food, they actually want to use our gas, our stoves and stuff like that, it's a $150 fee for them to use that. Vendor craft fairs and, or vendor fairs and craft fairs, $1,500 for 7 hours. Additional hours is $150. Kitchen fee with the event is $150 per hour. Company workshops. This is not like a company Christmas party or something like this. This is like if somebody's selling tickets to, you know, buy real estate. I don't know. One of those, just selling timeshares. Yep. I should say that. So that would be $1,500 for 7 hours, $150 per hour. And then kitchen fee with the event is $150. Kitchen only fee, this is for somebody who wants to come in and maybe use our kitchen for catering, right? They have a catering truck, they just need a place for a couple hours a day. It is $200 for 5 hours a day. Obviously, if they wanted to do like, you know, weekly, every day for a certain amount of time, they can come in and kind of talk to the commission and get a vendor contract for that if they want to make it more long-term.
Now, what if somebody wanted to have, like, say, a cooking class, but they don't want the place for 7 hours? They just want to use the kitchen and, like, you know, maybe...
They would come to the commission and we would set them a vendor.
Okay, all right, okay.
So we have somebody right now who does that with cookies. She makes cookies, bakes them, and decorates them, and she has a different rate than what this is right here.
Okay, all
And
right.
that's just simply because she came to us and said, you know, I want to do this, you know, on a monthly basis here at the camp, and we provide them with the facility to do that.
Does she do a class, or she just cooks and sells?
No, she does class. Yeah, it's like a cookie decorating class that we have
fun.
up there. It's from
Okay.
Blackbird Baking up in Pembroke.
Yeah, okay, I just saw an ad for them, yeah.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
she's done it multiple times, and she's great. So, you know, everybody seems to love it, so.
Awesome.
Hey, Frank, which category does, like, say, a company Christmas party fall into?
That would be under parties, and
Is that-
and company events, yeah. It's the
That's
same
less
rate.
money than a wedding, right?
Oh, yeah, you know, that's $750 for 5 hours. You get the whole hall for like a company party. The weddings are, you know, $85.
Would that include the kitchen, or that wouldn't include the kitchen?
It depends on what the use of the kitchen is. So if you...
I mean, if they brought it, say it was a company that was gonna bring in their company to have a Christmas party, and they hired a caterer to bring all the food in and just...
Yeah, so if they come in and cook the food on site...
No, that would be cooked, like...
Oh, then they're just rolling it in? That wouldn't justify a kitchen fee. A kitchen fee is when you go in and you turn on the ovens, turn on the stoves, start cooking on site.
And
What
that's
about if you just keep it warm there?
I'm sorry?
If you're just keeping it warm
So
in the
usually they
ovens?
have the containers to do that.
Okay, all right.
And that's $750 for that?
$750, yeah, for non-residents and non-Hanson businesses.
And if they wanted the bar, that would be more money.
Yeah, the bar is, you only have to pay the fee, which is $40.
Okay.
And then
But a Hanson resident would get 25% off, and if you were military, if you just happen to be military, you would get another 10%.
I don't know, I'm not sure if anybody up here is military or not. But
I don't know either.
We specifically made the military discount stackable this year with the resident discount, so.
So you could
I was joking, I know you.
I know.
So you could get 35% off of that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's.
Oh, no, I'm not looking for it, I'm just throwing it out there just to see where that, if that, I know the wedding is huge money.
Yeah.
Compared to, like a company Christmas party.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. The $750 for 5 hours is, you know, that covers all of our costs. Previously, we were, I think the previous rate, if I'm not mistaken, was either $500 or $600 for 5 hours. We raised it to $750 because we bumped up the Hanson rate.
Yep.
Or the Hanson discount, rather. So, and we made them stackable.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I like that thought process.
Yeah, we raise it for outside people coming in, and then, you know, if a person from Pembroke, who's also a veteran, comes into the camp,
They get the 10%.
they get the 10% discount as well.
They just don't get the...
They just don't get the stacking resident discount on top of it. So theoretically, you know, if you're paying $750 for a party at the camp and you're a Hanson resident, you're 35%, so that would be 225, so that'd be right around $500 you pay for the actual lodge, which is
That's
an
a
increase
bargain.
of like $25 over since the last pay raise because
Right.
they increased the rate.
It's $100 an hour. That's like, yeah.
You can't get much better than
No,
that.
you can't.
So, I mean, there's a lot of places in town that I was at another place that houses parties here, and they're raising their rate to $500 an hour, and it's not nearly as,
500 an hour?
I'm sorry, not 500, 500 for 5 hours.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're not nearly as luxurious as.
Nice.
Yes, I think we can appreciate what you're saying. Yes.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so we have those as the new rates. In our policies and procedures, the Board of Selectmen obviously has to vote on those rates. If there's any questions, I can take back to the commission as well. We did our research on this. Renee and Dory did a really good.
I mean, it's up to you guys, but I personally don't want to second guess a committee that we've got empowered to do this, who's put in the work, so.
I do appreciate that.
I will entertain a motion to approve the rates as outlined in the proposed January 1st, 2024 Camp Quaney rate document.
Rates and procedures?
Not yet. I didn't go over the procedures, so just the fee
So
schedule.
moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you. Some would say Camp Quaney's my first job, and my actual job is my second. So I appreciate the trust that you guys have in me. The next is the policies and procedures.
Yep.
Yeah, I have it right. It was the vendor contract. That was after. That's not good. So the policy procedures, when we changed our name to the recreation, or I'm sorry, to the Camp Quaney Commission, I think 2 town meetings ago, if I'm not mistaken, this is an updated policy and procedures. You still will know some of the Recreation Commission titles are in here because those are previous town meeting articles that we have to keep in there for logistics. A couple of things that we changed in here was the military discount, obviously, so we have that in our policies and procedures. And the big one that some people will probably not be super thrilled about, but nonetheless, is the dog policy. So, there's a little bit of a controversy about the dog policy. It's actually been in our policies and procedures to not have dogs at the camp from June 1st to September, I believe,
Correct.
1st.
You even have a sign that says that.
We even have a sign that says that. In our policies and procedures previous, this excluded, obviously, service dogs. But it also excluded comfort dogs. We removed the comfort dog out of there. I don't know what a comfort dog is. If it's a service dog, it's a service dog. It's ADA federally protected. We have to allow it on the camp. Comfort dog, my dog gives me comfort. I don't want to take her to the camp because it's against the policy.
I
So
think
we
that, isn't Ziva technically a comfort dog?
Ziva will have no problem getting onto the camp.
Okay, well,
He's a
she would
police
always be
officer.
accompanied by a
Yes,
police
she is.
officer.
I'm not
Yep.
sure if she is a town official technically or not, but if Officer Harrington would like to bring Ziva up to the camp, nobody's going to stop him. We have issues with people coming up there, having their dogs, all over the ground, leaving their mess everywhere, and they don't pick it up and things like that. So it's going to be strictly enforced this year about having that. And we're also looking into the process of getting like the dog bags that we can put around the camp in different places so people have the
Isn't
opportunity.
that counterintuitive?
have dog bags
Because for outside of the summer season,
Okay.
dogs are allowed on the camp.
Oh, okay.
So this policy is just from June 1st to September 1st when the beach and the cove is open, and that's our busy
Right.
wedding season.
Right.
Everything else, the dogs are allowed there.
Yeah. So I would suggest having the policy nearby so people realize.
Yes,
it
well,
is
we have
open.
signs for it pretty much on every telephone pole going up to.
Does it
up to
say
the
that
lodge.
the months?
It says, I believe it says the dates if I'm not
It does.
mistaken. So,
Okay.
yeah.
It does,
So,
I bring my dog up there to swim.
yeah, so there's.
I mean, I go up now and he can go swimming because it's after September.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, when the beach is open, I mean, it only makes sense. You don't want to have
It
dogs.
makes sense to you, but people don't seem to follow the rules,
They
so.
don't.
Yeah, people, and we have other situations up there with.
A lot of stuff
vicious
don't make sense.
Rottweilers.
We have a leash law in the Burridge and nobody follows it.
Yeah. and-
Don't
and-
trigger me, David.
And Smitty's Bog as well. So we have on Smitty's
Yep.
Bog as well.
Yes,
as
we've
a
heard
leash
about
law.
the Smitty Bog situation.
Why is there a leash law there?
There's a leash law throughout town.
I
Yeah,
guess.
and especially on the camp, there's a leash ordinance in our policy procedures, and we have one rogue, maybe potential citizen who has a Rottweiler who's not friendly, off a leash at different points in time.
Menacing all kinds of
I've
people.
gotten multiple complaints about it.
Oh, really?
Up at the camp. No, you guys probably have as well.
We have, and I've reached out to our animal control
So,
officer. Yeah.
yeah. And then another change on here also is the 25% discount.
Do you know what page the dog is on? I just want to make sure that if you're going to exclude dogs, that we have something that says, other than those accompanied by police. You know what I mean? Like some
Yeah.
little,
Yeah, I don't, to be honest with you, I'm not.
That would be considered
I
a
just
service
scanned through it and
dog.
I did not find dogs.
she's literally a comfort dog, though.
But she's still a
She's a
service
service
dog.
dog.
She's a service to the town with the police.
She's
Huh?
a police
She's
officer.
a police officer.
Yeah,
She
she's a
is?
service dog.
Okay, if you guys think it will,
She is,
she'll be
she's a
covered
police
here, I just don't want somebody to say, you know, you're not being
Oh, here it says
consistent.
right here,
Oh,
pets
no,
are
that
not
dog's
allowed,
100%. I mean,
with the
it's got
exception
insurance through the
of
town,
service
right? The
animals
town's
per,
paying for
it's on page 8,
for the true companion, right?
page 8.
But yeah, pets are not allowed at Cranberry Cove or at any other camp property between June 1st and Labor Day, with the exception of service animals.
Well, she's
per
not a
the Board of
pet,
Health.
so she's not a
She's a
pet.
police officer.
Yeah, Ziva will not have an issue getting under the camp, so. I don't want to incur the wrath of Officer Harrington, so, you know.
And
not
did you
gonna
say pets intentionally, so it wasn't just dogs?
Can't bring your pet iguana there?
If that.
No, I'm saying pet, like llama,
No,
this is a real
It says
thing.
dogs.
So,
On the
Yeah,
sign.
on the sign, but
this,
here it
this
says
says pets
pets.
are not allowed at Cranberry Cove, because if you say on the sign, dogs are not allowed at Cranberry Cove, somebody might bring, God knows what they bring over there, right? Yeah, it could bring a cat.
Exactly, I just like I said, a pet
Ferret.
iguana.
Like, I mean, I could go on and on, a fisher cat, you know. there's
No,
gonna be
that's
all kinds
why
of
I
crazy
was
stuff down
asking,
there.
were you intentionally trying to be broader?
No, so the pets were in there from before. And,
Okay,
you know,
all right.
if the pet iguana is a certified American
Service
Disability
iguana,
Act service
yeah.
animal, you show us, I don't even think we can ask you for it.
It
but
could
if you
happen,
have
I don't
the-
know. No, you cannot, you're not,
Then we will go ahead and allow that iguana
Yeah.
into the camp with no issue.
Okay.
I would have a hard time believing that is the case, though, so.
Oh, they're doing it, they're doing it.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not gonna.
You've now called the universe
It's not a
in
hill
on
I'm gonna
yourself.
die on, so,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, did anybody have, Ms. Green, did you read over these procedures and policies?
I actually have not seen them.
Okay.
So I'll be happy to read them over tomorrow. I can forward them to town council for their review as well.
Okay, then why don't we make a provisional motion to approve these contingent upon legal counsel having no issue with them, if you guys are in agreement with that, just to move things along.
like a plan.
Okay, I will
Mistaken, I
entertain.
believe legal might have already looked at this, so I would reach out to Dory and see if she said that, because we had legal.
If she did, then it's a done deal, but, so the motion on the table is to approve the policies and procedures as presented to us this evening by the Camp Kawani Commission, contingent upon legal counsel approving.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic.
So the next item is accept the gift of 1947 photo album Camp Quaney from Lori Ball of Newton. So
Very
Lori's,
cool.
So
Lori's
cute.
mother attended the camp in 1971 and was a member of the Campfire Girls, and attended the summer camp at Camp Quaney, which I now understand was in Hanson. I'm reading from the letter here as well. So she donated that, because we actually have a chest at Camp Quaney of all of the artifacts that people give to us. We have multiple photo books, which is awesome. We have some different pieces of clothing that are really cool. So we love it when people give us
Yeah,
stuff
this
that
is
they-
very cute. I will entertain a motion to accept the 1947 photo album of Camp Kawani from Lori and Sorge Ball of Newton.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And then,
Sorry.
yep, no.
So accept gift
Right,
of $200 from the
second.
Friends of the Hanson Multi-Service Senior Center. I had a hard time with this. I did not want to accept this, but Mary insisted that we at the
Yeah,
camp take this.
I saw that.
And I talked to her and I said, Mary, I was like, we're fine, we don't need this, but she insisted that we take it, because I don't know if you guys remember, with the great flood of 2023, we had the seniors up there at the camp, and we loved them up there. We would have.
It was a love fest. The whole thing was a love fest.
I was
Yeah.
listen, I was up there dancing. My wife was making fun of me during the lunchtime dancing that
Yeah.
we did up there at the COA. It was really awesome. So Dory had a blast. Everybody at the camp absolutely loved them having them there. And so the Friends of the Hanson Multi-Service Senior Center decided to donate $200 to the camp. And we're going to find some way to use that money that we can enhance the camp experience for the senior centers.
Okay.
For the senior citizens.
So I will entertain a motion to accept the gift of $200 from the Friends of the Hanson Multi-Service Senior Center for the recreation, I'm sorry, for the Camp Kawani Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Great. Next, approved discounted rate for the Polar Plunge from 9 a.m. rate of $25 per hour, totaling $150. So it's a fundraiser for the PTO. It's a huge fundraiser for the PTO. And you may or may not all be required to participate or highly encouraged to participate
Did you last year?
in that event. I personally have participated every year since they've had it.
That's awesome.
My wife's been trying to make me.
And I have a badge to prove
Same
it.
thing, tell her no every time.
And every year I say to my husband, please remind me next year not to sign up for this.
Why you do it?
I do it every year. Yes, I
does
do.
it.
We'll have to
So,
discuss that more before we.
more on that later, but we have the discounted rate totaling $150 for 9 to 3 p.m., It's $25 per hour. I will entertain that motion.
And just for information, we require somebody to give us their 501c3 form in order to put these rates.
That's a good practice.
So, just so, I know there was some interestingness.
In the past,
but-
there's been some
Yes.
questions about
But
that.
now we require, it
Okay.
has to be up to date.
Yep.
Also as well.
That's also very important. So I will entertain that motion.
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. And then approve discounted rate for the beekeeper holiday party from 5 to 9 p.m. at a rate of $25 per hour, totaling $100. I will entertain that motion.
So moved.
I am recusing myself.
You're recusing yourself, so Mr. George, did you want to second that?
What's the matter?
Did you want to second it?
Oh, yeah, I second.
Okay, all right. For the record, Mrs. Rain is recusing herself. All in favor?
We're happy,
Okay.
we're happy to be the new home
Great.
of the Beekeepers Association holiday
And I'm
party.
thrilled
so-
to be there. I think this is awesome.
The town is abuzz about it.
Yeah, exactly, there you go.
I could have.
Why would you?
Okay.
I hope there's ample honey there when we do that.
I would have sent my bees over to sting you.
Then approve discounted rate for Hanson football banquet on 1/5/24 from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at a rate of $25 per hour, totaling $100. I will entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
All in favor?
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Just so everybody's aware, the Hanson Youth Football, this team in particular, the Pee Wee team, won the Super Bowl this year.
Yes.
Up against I believe it was Quantiquid. So I actually recused myself from this vote because I'm obviously the board member of football, so just want to let everybody know that.
Yeah. But your commission voted to.
Correct, yeah, the commission voted to go through without, I abstained during that vote, so I
Yeah.
didn't vote off, but just, I suppose somebody's gonna put two and two together and ask that question.
Nope, thank you for mentioning that, but it sounds like they're in like Flint for the 5th of 24, and I hope they have a wonderful banquet, and
Pay that?
congratulations on them.
Pool table.
So I don't think I see the Camp Quaney Lodge rental agreement on the agenda.
It is not on the agenda.
Okay, so,
We don't.
okay, do you want me to just speak to it in the next meeting, you guys can?
Can we we want to just make sure that we're only deliberating about things that we've got on the agenda.
Okay.
We will make sure that we put that on our, what is it, the 9th that we're, yeah.
I will not be here that day.
Can Dory come and talk to us about it, or?
I can ask her.
Okay.
She's in New York till the end of the week. I have to check when she gets back.
Okay.
But I will ask her about it.
Okay,
So.
and if it's intuitive, we may just take a look at it again. Ms. Green, I think that's something we should have legal counsel take a look at, if they haven't already.
They already have.
I thought she
They have
had.
already looked at this,
So,
Okay, so you may not need to be here in the event that legal counsel's already looked at it, they don't have any concerns. We'll put it on the agenda for us to have a vote.
fantastic.
Okay, and you don't need to have Miss Jameson attend.
There's no need for anything else.
No, I mean, thank you so much. This is a lot of very positive forward movement, and we appreciate your leadership and all of the hard work that you and all the other members do on the commission.
Well, thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening. I'm going to go home now.
Will you do that? Enjoy.
Relatively upset wife.
And thank you for waiting.
Oh, well,
Before you go, can you just sign here as the department head? This is
Okay.
for the, new employees.
Yes.
I'll make sure.
Recreation committee discussion.
we're not discussing that because Mr. Weeks was going to give us information, and he is ill. Discuss Hanson's goals for Regional School Agreement Committee. Ms. Green.
Okay, so, As the board knows, we have been meeting with the schools, Jeff Simonak, superintendent, George Farrow, the assistant superintendent. There's members of Whitman and members of Hanson, which include myself. Chairman Joe Kevin is on the board, and our finance committee, we have Stephen Amico, who is going to be joining us on that committee as well. So we've been reviewing the current regional school agreement, the modified agreement that was actually not signed, but they still refer to it, and we're coming up with a brand new agreement, regional school committee agreement. The superintendent has forwarded the agreement both to MARS, which is the Massachusetts Association of Regional School District, and DESE, the Department of Education and Secondary, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So he's forwarded a copy of a draft agreement with language to both of those entities who have reviewed it. It was reviewed during our last meeting, which was November 22nd.
It was close to Thanksgiving, I think it was.
Close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And there were some areas where language was confusing. So the Superintendent Simonak is reaching out to both of those entities to ask for clarification on some of these. In the interim, there is a meeting planned, I believe, for January 8th.
Yep.
And we just want to go over and talk about what the town of Hanson would like to see as part of the agreement. One area that I did bring up was transportation for the agricultural schools, which has become a large challenge and time-consuming issue for our office, where in prior years, students attending Norfolk Agricultural High School, Bristol Agricultural High School, Norfolk, we've always had students, that transportation has been, it's been coordinated with the Town of Hanson and the Regional School District. The bus stops have been in place for many years. Bristol Aggie, we have not had students attend until 2 years ago, which has been a challenge to get transportation for these students. They have to travel from Hanson and Whitman. Prior years they were traveling to Plymouth and then down to Bristol, which made their days very long. So we coordinated and got transportation basically from Hanson and Whitman down to Dayton and then return. So we're hoping to incorporate some of that responsibilities in this agreement to the school district, where they have somebody who focuses on transportation, as we do not. And so with that introduction, what would the board like to see more conversations about as far as our regional school district agreement?
We don't have the document here, right?
We don't have no, because there's no document per se that would, there's no like final document.
There's a draft.
The thing that seems to be the primary focus, at least I believe is the primary focus of the conversation, is changing the way that the transportation costs are allocated, and as one might guess, it would not be in our favor. So if, it's interesting because there probably are some sort of like other little things that need to be updated, like the agreement that is in place, and I reject the notion that the draft revised agreement is the one that we're working off. We're working off of the old agreement that was amended once, and it was amended for statutory. So there's a lot of antiquated language in there that refers to schools that have been closed. It's a lot of things. There's a change in the dollar threshold for which we would, the town would pay, which I think is what,
10,000. It went from $5,000 to $10,000.
Yeah, anything under 10 would be paid by by the school, and then anything over 10 we would pay.
For what?
Just emergency repairs type
Oh,
of thing, like
okay,
repair, you know,
okay, yeah.
in other words, things that can't wait for town meeting, have got to get taken care of in that moment, a flood or, you know, toilet busting or, you know, things that for the health and safety of the students.
Was that
need to be
in there
taken care of.
before?
Yeah, the 5,000 was the threshold before, so.
And now they want to move it to 10?
They want to move it to 10.
So we pay after 10? The town pays after 10 or before 10?
I think we're paying up to the 10.
Up to the 10. So again, it's worse for the
And
towns.
we put some additional language in there. It was a little bit, I didn't like the language that referred to how quickly they would tell us about an emergency that might be in excess of that dollar amount. And so I put language in there that, look, we're not trying to impede you, but we need to know, because if we're writing a check. So they, you know, the general consensus that, of course, this all has to be brought back to the Whitman, you know, select board and back to the school committee for them to all agree on the language. We're just merely representatives.
Right.
We can't make the decision. But the general consensus seemed to be, yeah, that's fine. The interesting part about the transportation costs, I really would like to get our own independent third party to tell us what our options are there. It seems to me as though DESI and Mars had very different interpretations, and we need a tiebreaker. I don't know how we decide which one is right and which one isn't. And I don't know if we can talk to town council and see if they might have a resource that we could go to, somebody who's an expert in this. If, you know, Eric, our town accountant, would, because it's really, we're talking about allocation of cost. So, you know, I'm more interested in like, how is this done in other towns, at regional towns?
Mark Abrams may be a resource
I think
as well.
you had mentioned that you might reach out to him. So I think that would be a good idea. You know, quite honestly, if the agreement doesn't get amended, then the allocation of the transportation costs doesn't change. And it stays the same.
Right, but also all the old schools that don't exist around.
All the old language and some of the other things that we were going to change, you know, don't get changed. But
It seems like a lot of what you're talking about is against the towns, or and
I try not
primarily
to look at
Hanson.
it that way, but it's hard, you know, part of me was like, well, why didn't this come up when we were in the other, you know, when we were discussing this earlier? And it feels like, well, why didn't this come up when the statutory method was, you know, sort of discussed? And so I try to refrain from giving into those thoughts, but it does feel as though we are continuously getting, they're continuously kind of finding ways to shift more of the cost to Hanson.
We're all automatically having more costs shifted to us based on that wonderful presentation that we had that explained that
we're paying more than
we're paying way more than Whitman, because Whitman has a larger business base than we do.
And not
And
as
the
many.
money is allocated across, a smaller amount of money for personal is allocated across a larger number of students.
Right.
And we have a larger number, a larger amount of money, no, I'm saying that wrong. We have
number of students.
We have a
Smaller number of students, but we're paying a larger
amount of
amount
personal property.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right off to me, that we're already at a disadvantage. And it's being blessed by the state.
Yeah, every step of the way.
I don't understand how that
I'm trying not to be incendiary, like I'm really trying. No, I'm trying to, because like we have to work with these guys, and I'm trying to be like, you know.
They need to know how we feel though.
Yeah,
And I think most of us feel like every step of the way within this regional thing, Hanson has gotten the short end of the stick. I mean, every single time, busing, every step of the way, we're getting the short end of the stick, and it's, and like Ann pointed out, it's just because of the way they figure out the who what town is more wealthy.
No, it's not.
It's what residents are more wealthy, not the businesses, they're not including the businesses. That's huge.
It's not even that, Ed. I mean, the way that guy was explaining it to me, I looked at him, I said, I hate to, I'm gonna be incendiary. It's weasel words to hide a way to basically screw one town and pit two towns against each other, too.
It really, truly is.
It's so adversarial, I can't even believe that it's not out in the open more than it is. It blows my mind.
So, okay, so what I think I'm hearing from you guys is you share my concerns, okay? And so, I mean, obviously, we're not going to agree, I'm not there to agree to anything on your behalf. Anything that we agree to will be brought back for the full board's review and determination.
I wish I could go to the meetings, but I believe they're on Monday.
They are on a Monday night, which is why I took one for the team. And trust me, I wish you could go to those meetings as well. But I'm doing it. So, anyway, okay, I hear you loud and clear.
And one question I have about the 10,000 emergency fund, how often do they have an
It's not
emergency?
often, it really isn't often, but it is things like, for
Like a roof
years,
or
there was a
something.
problem with the elevator at the middle school, and, part of ADA compliance, we have to have a way for kids to be able to get up the stairs, and so that's a situation where, yes, temporarily you can have the firefighters help somebody up the stairs, but it's humiliating and it isn't really in full compliance. You've got to fix that. Or if there's flooding and it's going to cause mold and mildew and other health issues, you have to fix that. So it's those types of things. I mean, now that I'm saying that it doesn't happen often, it will probably happen like popcorn.
I'm just wondering about the past. I'm not
Popping. Yeah, I mean,
predict
it's
the
gonna,
future.
But, there were times, like, we had a pipe burst, I think, up at the middle school.
Yeah,
Now,
last
one of the
January,
other things that we did emphasize, and of course, Superintendent Simonek and Assistant Superintendent Farrow agreed, as did the folks from Whitman, which is, we've got a lot of resources in town. We have our Charlie Baker, we have our, Fire Chief O'Brien, and in the case of a flood, they'd come in and do the pumper, and, that would be a lot less costly to use our resources first to the extent possible, instead of hiring like a service pro or somebody to do that. So, to the extent that they can do that, they've agreed that they will do that, and historically they have.
They have, okay.
But there's just always those cases where we might not have resources that can help, and it might be bigger than what
Do
we
they
can
not
do.
have a Charlie Baker?
They
Do they
have.
not have pumper trucks? Would
They,
not
no,
go
they
there
do not
first?
have pumper truck. I
Do they
mean,
really?
Whitman may, but I'm saying.
That's what I mean.
No, this is just for Hanson buildings.
Oh, just for
that we're
Hanson
talking- yeah,
buildings. Okay,
yep,
okay.
Yep, so,
Okay,
Yeah.
not the high school.
well, would be the high school too, yeah. I mean, we kind of work cooperatively with
Right.
Whitman on that, because both students go there.
Yeah.
But for the majority of what we're talking about is the Indian Head and then, the middle school.
Is the 10,000 the high school too, though?
That threshold applies to everything, but I'm saying the emergencies
Right.
that we would kind of ask them to use our resources would be the Hanson buildings.
okay.
Yeah. And I know Robbie's up at the high school anyway when anything
Right.
happens, so,
Yep.
to the extent that they need them. Okay, well, we didn't really need a vote on it, I just kind of wanted a consensus, so Ms. Green and I knew whether we were swinging in the breeze here on our own, just
Right.
thinking this is how everybody would feel. We just wanted to check in with everybody.
Thank you for doing that.
On it.
That's great.
Okay, so, then we've got Right to Farm. Ms. Green?
Yes, so we had a resident reach out recently that asked about how Hanson would become what process we had to follow to become a right to farm community. The process is not difficult. It requires a town meeting vote. So in the next few weeks, next couple of months, the warrant will be opened. We will be asking town council to help us draft an article to place in the warrant that the board will discuss and vote on. And then it'll be up to town meeting if they want to if they want Hanson to become a right to farm.
Now, this did come before town meeting back in 2013. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
It was like, I want to say 2013, something like that. And at the time, there was a situation over near King's Landing where somebody had a cow and there was some situation there.
They had 3 steer on
Yep.
3/4 of an acre of land.
And it was causing some concerns by the neighbors, who then kind of conflated this to mean that this would be happening all over town if we passed the right to farm.
Yep.
And so a couple of people got up and were able to sway town meeting to not pass it. What I thought, just as an attendee, I wasn't even a select person at the time, was a slam dunk. I thought, well, this,
It's a given.
yeah, we're a farming town, we've got a lot of people with chickens and animals.
I happened to be, I was on the Ag Commission, I worked very hard on that. What people don't understand about, right, first of all, Hanson, where it's not otherwise designated, is an agricultural town. It's still zoned agriculturally, except where the specific zones have been set up because of the cranberry industry. Right to farm doesn't mean that your next door neighbor is going to be able to set up a farm. That's not how it works. You have to have, I believe it's 2 acres plus your acre your house lives on. So I think it's a minimum of 3 acres. I'm not remembering that quite right. It's either 3 or 5 acres you have to have in order to be considered a farm right off the bat. And you have to run it as a farm. You have to
comply.
You have to make money. You know, you have to have a farming business like you know, the Sylvesters down in. They do eggs. You know, there are farms in town that are actually running as farms. That's about it. That would be included in the.
They also have to comply with Board of Health regulations, so you can't just have all kinds of filth and what have you. So I think we just didn't have the right information presented there.
And it didn't get put out properly.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is the regulations as they stand in Hanson today. If we become right to farm, those regulations aren't gonna change.
No, they don't change.
So nothing, you know, that farm is still gonna be able to run as a farm.
You know, one of the points was that it was going to take away from values of the homes. That's not true.
No.
It's proven that when they put a right to farm, it's friendly and people actually appreciate the town more for being friendly towards farmers.
I also think it's more compatible with what is actually happening in town, which was we have a lot of homesteaders, we have a lot of farmers. This is the way that this is the character of the town. So it's so shocking to me that I saw a Facebook post and people were shocked that we aren't already like they were like, how is that possible?
Well, Whitman has become. I believe they just passed that, right?
A right to farm?
Women just,
Really?
I think so. I think
Oh, wow,
women just
okay.
passed it.
That's shocking.
Which is weird, but it's because of Hornstra.
Yes.
To protect Hornstra. West Bridgewater, I think East Bridgewater and West Bridgewater are both right to farm. I might be wrong about East, but I'm
East Bridgewater is.
It is, okay, so then West Bridgewater is. I mean, we're surrounded by towns that have it.
I believe Brockton is too.
Yeah, Brockton. Believe it or not.
Are you joking right now?
No,
Oh,
he's serious.
okay, all right.
It
I
is
thought you
I know
were
Brockton has it.
trying to
I know
add
they do.
levity. Okay.
No, I know they do.
All right.
I'd rather live in Brockton than live in Whitman.
I mean, okay, David.
We truly are surrounded by towns that are right.
You guys are intentionally gonna blow up my phone with some comments that be made tonight. Okay.
Give them my text
All
number,
right.
I'll talk to them.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is, does anybody have concerns with that being on the warrant? And let the voters make the decision. I
Right,
mean,
it is up to
yeah,
the town.
Yeah, okay. All right, great. So then that brings us to the 2023 annual licensing. Ms. Green.
Okay, so thank you to the hard work of our.
2024.
The agenda says 2023 annual licensing.
2024.
2024.
Okay, all right.
So this year was our first year really with Permitize being online, being live. So most of the licenses were done electronically through the system. Lynn was a great help and a resource to our businesses who are doing this for the first time. Full Circle was also a resource and a support for folks as far as accounts and things like that. So I think for the most part, it was a good process. There will always be little wrinkles to work out, being the first year we've done it, but, and Lynn can speak on her experience with it.
There was a steep learning curve, and we have such a tight window to do the licensing that it was a learning curve for some of them. And some of what Permit Eyes promised us, it didn't actually come to fruition because the modules don't talk to each other.
Are we working on that?
We are working on that. Board of Health and Building are having training so that they can get up to speed and get the new modules. So we do have a few more outstanding that I like, but I'm not going to be releasing licenses until everybody is paid what they owe.
Okay, so that is always the question that we have before we get into any of this. Does anybody owe back taxes? Has anybody had any?
There are a few that owe back taxes. Ms. Forty's been updating me pretty much every other day to let me know who is outstanding. I'm reaching out to them, so we're just trying to get everybody all caught up.
Okay, but, okay, so,
Isn't the deadline coming up pretty soon? Or it's already passed?
For,
To pay the town
taxes.
well, they are late. If you have not paid, you are late.
right now? Okay.
The other question that we always ask is, have there been any enforcement issues? Board of Health issues, building code issues, police issues at these businesses?
There was only one that I've been made aware of, and it's been resolved.
Police issue?
No, it was more a building issue.
Okay. Okay.
So this list here is everybody, or is this everybody that we're going to
That is
accept?
everyone who's getting a license.
Right, so not
This
people
is
that haven't
everybody
paid
who's
taxes.
applied for a license, or everybody that has made it through the vetting process and does not owe taxes?
That is everybody who's applied. There are some who are not.
Well, I don't see how we can take a vote to renew a license for somebody that owes taxes. So
Kind of have to
you're
have
gonna
a
have to,
modified list.
we're gonna have to have, I don't like to call people out. I mean, how many businesses are we talking about?
There are several.
It owe back taxes, really?
Just this
Well, I don't
year.
think it's so
Well,
much back.
it's not back, it's like
Pay their bill on
current.
time.
Yeah.
Oh,
It could be a water bill that they owe, could be real estate taxes that they owe.
Why don't we do it this way? Why don't we take a vote and have you read to us the businesses that are okay to move forward with, considering the fact that they do not owe us anything? Because I do not have that list, so I therefore cannot read that list. And I don't want to be calling people out for being, like, not paying, like, we're in December, I think taxes were due in November 1st, and I don't want to cause reputational damage to somebody because they're late paying taxes.
Is that hard to do, or should this be done, could this be done at another meeting?
We can't, can we do
don't
this
have
in
another
January? It has to be done before the
Oh,
end
it
of
has
the
to be
year,
done
right?
before
At the end of the year, for the licenses, because they all expire.
So what
December
happens to
31.
the people who haven't paid taxes, who we don't update their
We'll
license
probably
on?
have to have a quick executive session before the end of the year.
Okay.
And by the way, I want to go on the record as saying, I'm not happy about that. So I want to go on the record as saying that.
I was not happy about it either. Several,
yeah, but if you don't renew their liquor license and then now you're just putting them that much
Yeah.
further back in the
Yes.
do
hole.
you want to do the whole thing then during executive session instead of reading them off?
We can't shift this tonight. Have to be another night.
No.
Could it be an executive session to do the whole thing?
No, we cannot do executive session. I know I said executive session, I meant an emergency one-off. We cannot, this is an open session item.
Okay.
So,
Is what it is.
so there's,
So rather than reading out the bad boys.
That's what I was trying to
We're
say.
going to read the good boys.
Right.
And we have a list in front of us and
Right.
we can.
so at least you can get those guys moving forward.
Can you do that, Lynn? Is that a pain? Is that close to
Like
impossible?
100 of them on there.
did you want to take a recess and you can mark up our list and then I can read?
I can print out my list.
Okay, all right. Nicole, we're going to take a brief recess. Okay, welcome back to the December 12th Hanson Select Board meeting. On our agenda was the 2024 annual licensing. A number of folks on the list have not completed paying their taxes and what have you, and there were enough there that we felt that we want to take this up as a separate meeting, likely next week to be posted. And this will allow our administrative assistant, Ms. McDowell, to do some additional reconnaissance and for us to winnow down this list so that we can open as many businesses as possible in January of or they can reopen or stay open in 2024. We will not do the annual licensing. And then we've already done the appointments of Paul Serra, Thomas Labo, Ms. Pritchard withdrew, which brings us up to the updated select board calendar review. Ms. Green.
So I made the changes on the calendar.
Oh, Ms. McDowell.
I added quarterly meetings for executive session review of minutes going forward.
That's a great idea. Thank you very much. Did anybody have any additional questions about that? Okay.
Ms. Rain found a change in the date. I had a date wrong, so I made that correction.
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw that, thank
For
you.
which date?
It was in December, I think it was 15th.
Like
Was it
next
December or
December?
January?
We'll have a new one by then, right?
Okay, all right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the 2024-2025 Select Board Calendar as presented to us.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All
right.
I will say the end of January is looking very ugly.
Well,
Into February.
you know what, this is all aspirational and can be changed.
Yes, yes.
So it's all aspirational. Okay, the Town Administration Annual Review Timeline, Ms. Green. Yes, Town Administration Annual Review Timeline. I think it's Town Administrator.
It's supposed to be town
Annual review.
administrator, correct?
Yeah.
So it's that time of year again, for the board to review my performance, my work performance. We do have a different form than was used last year, a form that better fits municipality, and better fits the town of Hanson. Okay, did we get copies of that form?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I had that in there.
Okay. What we would do, and I don't know, Madam Chair, if you had a chance to review the new form for the assessment for the town administrator?
Yes, Ms. McDowell and I have been working on them quite extensively.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. That will be sent out, or that will be delivered to each of the board members to provide a performance review for myself.
If I can just chime in, so what we found was last year, for those of you who went through the painful exercise of using the form that we had last year, it was quite redundant. It was not, there were no questions that really allowed you to get into depth about pros and cons of Lisa's performance. It was the beginning. It was a good place to start because we had not had any review form, but it needed a lot. It was lackluster. It needed some embellishing. So Ms. McDowell went out and since plagiarism is the highest form of a compliment, we plagiarized and put together a compilation of various plagiarisms from other towns. And then tweaked it and tried to smooth it out a little bit. And so I think if Ms. McDowell sends that to you, if you see something materialistic that you like, I don't think this should be in the form, then let us know. But I think you'll find it easy to use, and I think it will help us to be more consistent in what we're looking at and what we're giving feedback on, instead of this kind of free-for-all that we had before. So when are we proposing that reviews be completed?
Well, we,
Aren't we required to do it by February every year?
yeah, so I would,
Due by
Yeah.
February.
Yep.
I would say by the end of January, so that Ms. McDowell can put basically a summarization of all of the remarks and.
Because they say we'll get it the first week of January and it's due in February.
Yeah.
Should it be
Okay.
due by the end of January?
I'd say
I think we'll probably, yeah.
Beginning of February.
And I think-
Can we do the beginning of February?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it doesn't specify end or beginning in the,
Can we add beginning?
requirement. I think, one of the things to keep in mind is that Ms. Green's contract is up for renewal this year, and I would very much like to start those conversations as early as possible, so that, if we do want to retain Ms. Green, she's feeling secure in that and feeling, supported in continuing to do her job. And if we're not, that we're giving her sufficient time and ourselves sufficient time to try to replace her. I'm hoping that the scenario of retaining her is where we go, but I'm only one vote, and it's gonna be up to the board. I think that it's important for us to get that performance appraisal done, and then get that feedback to Ms. Green so that she can work on it. And we're all we're on the same sheet of music.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's why I kind of wanted to emphasize that we need to get that done early, and get that discussion going. I don't think there was anything else really to say about that, other than you'll send it out with a reminder of the due date, and we'll put it on our agenda. Now, keep in mind, one of the things that is suggested, and this was run by our town council last year, was that we certainly don't want Ms. Green to be hearing things in open session that have not been said to her individually. It's not fair, it's not the way that we would want people to treat us. So if there is feedback, make sure that you are giving it to Ms. Green, one-on-one, so that we're not violating open meeting law. We will follow the process so that we are blind on what each other are saying about Ms. Green's performance until we get into the room to discuss it. Only Ms. McDowell will have the opportunity to see and know whose ratings are what and whose feedback are what, and then we will discuss it in open session. But as I said, I don't want Ms. Green sitting there hearing things for the first time. It's not fair. Yes, Mr.
I agree with all that. I believe, I'm just recalling last year that we had deadlines and many of us
Did not stick to the deadlines, yes.
Yes, we need to make sure we as a group stick to the deadlines.
You're saying this to me, but ironically, I was the only one who actually made the deadline last year.
I'm not sure who
Yes.
I think I was fairly close behind.
Yes, I think you were too, but, yes. But I know you really didn't, you weren't aiming that towards me, because.
I was aiming it just as to the board. I wasn't aiming it at anybody in
Okay, all right.
particular.
You were looking at me, so I was like.
I'm sorry.
I was
No,
like, well, yes,
it
we
was
should,
not-
Ed.
It was not meant to
Is
be
this a
that way.
multiple choice form?
It's somewhat, yes, kind of multiple choice, but there's, obviously, she would benefit from feedback. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I think we're agreed on the, process, and yes, Ed, we should stick to the deadline. Knowing that life does have a way of cropping up, and we are an all-volunteer army, but we will do our damnedest. Okay. So that is, any burning wild committee updates that anybody feels they need to share? Okay, great. And then, town administrator report, Ms. Green.
Okay, yes, Madam Chair, absent Vice Chair, members of the board. So my administrative report today is really going to focus on some recognitions that really are due right now. The first one is for our senior center and our senior center director, and the work that they're doing over there to help out all of our senior citizens with open enrollment as far as their Medicare, the volunteers. We have Linda Mulray, Mary Collins, and Faye Vitale. Faye Vitale is the volunteer, Linda Mulray and Mary Collins are employees. They met with 138 residents during this open enrollment session. They were successful in saving the residents a collaborative total of $58,000.
Wow.
During the open enrollment, with the type of benefits that they can apply for, things like that. It shows really the dedication and wonderful work for our senior center. The employees and the volunteers who really dedicate a lot of work towards making sure the senior center is a place where people can go to feel welcome, to search out resources. Mary Collins is one of the best directors that we have, and the town of Hanson is very fortunate to have them. So kudos to everyone over at our senior center. And second, I would like to recognize a story that I heard regarding actions of one of our police officers who came across a vehicle in a parking lot of a business that was closed. There was a person inside that vehicle. It was an elderly woman. The vehicle basically was her home. It had run out of gas. She had the vehicle, the battery had died in the vehicle. She was using it to keep warm. She had no cell phone service on her battery. So the officer actually brought the woman to a local hotel and paid for a night's stay for her. He contacted one of our Hanson businesses, who's an auto repair shop. The business came and got the vehicle, towed it to his shop. He repaired the vehicle, filled it with gas, and basically the woman was returned to her vehicle. She stated to the officer that this situation is a temporary situation, but regardless, we had somebody who was in need, and we had Hanson people step up.
And that was a night when I think the temperatures really
It was in the 20s.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that was Officer Leo Arsenault.
Arsenault, yes, it was.
Yep.
And the business was McQuarrie's Auto of Hanson's. So there are wonderful people here in the town of Hanson, employees and business owners and residents who do go above and beyond to help somebody in need.
Well, and I just want to add on to that just a little bit. The Hanson Police, I think the title of it was Quietly Making Noise.
Yes.
And I think that's something that I would really just like to remind people how fortunate we are. We have an excellent police force. We have an excellent chief of police. And just because you don't hear about all of the amazing things that they're doing every day doesn't mean that they're not out there doing it. They are. And we're really, really lucky. Some luck. I would say also Chief Mix and Deputy Casey have done an excellent job of hiring and training and identifying the skills of the people that we have, similar to Chief O'Brien. Honestly, I know everybody feels this way, but I know it's the truth. We have the best in Hanson, the absolute best in both of those departments. So Leo is a testament to the department, and there's many others.
Absolutely, they care, they're dedicated, so Hanson is very fortunate.
Yep.
This is an introduction for one of our next very soon meetings to discuss animal control. Animal control has been an area that has not been a lot of focus over the years. Basically, we've been sharing an animal control officer with the town of Whitman and some other towns. A lot of towns do that. They share animal control officer. The position has grown in its responsibility and obligation to a point where we've only allocated 16 hours a week. We don't provide a vehicle. We don't provide expenses. And the person that we have in this position, Joe Kenny, is very dedicated.
Excellent.
He responds to every call. He uses his own vehicle to go and pick up dead animals. He uses his own vehicle to pick up abandoned animals, which is something we are going to have to look at for the budget for this. Hanson has really not been introduced to this type of issue because we haven't had apartments before. Now we have apartment buildings, complexes. And apparently when folks are evicted from those apartments, sometimes they leave their pet behind. And it is the town's responsibility under the law to go and collect that animal and do something with it. Find it a home, find it a shelter. Hanson does not have a shelter. We don't have an animal shelter.
We used to.
We did used to have one, it was at the
used to have a pound.
transfer
Yeah,
station.
we had a pound.
It's now being used for the recycling, the thrift store or whatever. But I thought we entered into an agreement.
So we have an agreement with Lakeville, actually, that we need to look at, but they only take dogs. When the other animals, cats, there's no shelters that take cats. So a lot of times, our animal control officer takes these animals home until he can find somewhere for them. So the town has been very, very fortunate to have this type of employee, and we need to look at the budget and we need to reevaluate. I have reached out to other managers. Pembroke has basically said, yes, they have a shelter in Pembroke. They said, yes, we have an agreement with Hanover. We're open to talks with Hanson. So we'll look at that, and I will collect information of what salaries are in other towns, what kind of hours, what type of supplies that they provide, expenses, things like that, just so that we can equip Joe with what he needs to do the job here in Hanson.
So the idea is to keep Joe or somebody in that position, but bring it up to par?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Give him the resources.
Yeah.
Give him the resources that he needs.
And the hours
from town
he
Hanson.
needs. It's not fair to have somebody doing all kinds of stuff on their own time.
100%.
You know, and we've all interacted with Joe. He's quite excellent at what he does.
Yeah,
Right.
and no vehicle stipend, or,
Yeah.
I mean, we might not be able to afford a vehicle, but what can we do?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, he uses his own to go pick up the dead animals.
Yeah.
I mean, would you want to use your vehicle for that?
No, I would not. I would not. You have to draw the line somewhere. That might be where I would draw
Right,
it.
so
Yeah.
we need to reevaluate the position and the budget for that, so I will be providing information as I collect more and more. This is something that just literally came up, like in the last week, where Joe called me and brought me up to speed about this situation. And it's going to happen more and more as we welcome more multi-unit family housing into the town, so something that we need to get ready for.
Well, and just to actually, again, add just a little bit on that, I know that the dog situation down at Smitty's Bog, which we briefly alluded to when Mr. Melissy was here, I reached out to Mr. Kenny and he said, Laura, like, I only work really part-time, like, I don't have I can't be down there, like, monitoring to see when, and when initially I was like, ooh, and then I thought, he's right, how could he do that on 16 hours a week? What's he gonna do, camp down at Smitty's Bog to try to catch the offending dog?
Do we know who
You know?
this person is?
No, nobody's gotten pictures or anything, so no, but if you see something, say something, you need to take pictures.
Yes, we need pictures of this person.
So.
And also too, so Christmas and Christmas Eve this year on a Sunday and a Monday. The town hall, in all of our, in our union contracts and our bylaws, Christmas Eve is a half a day from noon, because the town hall closes at noon. That day is going to be considered a floater for most employees. So.
Christmas Eve?
Yes, because it's on a Sunday this year.
Right,
So we'll
okay, so it is a float, okay.
Yeah.
So on Friday, December 22nd, Town Hall will be open regular hours, 8 to noon. Some of the employees that do work on Fridays may take that day as a floater. We will do everything we can to make sure that the website is updated and people know what departments will be open, what departments will be closed that day. I do know the town clerk's office will be open the full day, as they're required to do in an election year. But other departments may be closed because that department head may take that day off, but we will do our best to get that information out there. But just to give everybody an idea of what the schedule will be, we will be here 8 to noon on Friday, December 22nd.
I wish there was a way for us to permit everybody to not be in town hall, but I think because of the fact that, you know, Christmas is on a Monday, people will maybe well, we already know we've got people who'll get business up at town hall paying the taxes. You know,
But it is a floater though, so they
it's a floater.
could take the
Yeah, they'll
day.
take some
So it's
kind of
almost better if they
equivalent
can decide.
time. Maybe, yeah.
Is it a floater or is it a half-day floater? It's a full-day floater.
It's a half-a-day floater.
It's a half-a-day.
It's a half-a-day floater, yes, yes. So.
I'll be there.
So it's almost better that they can decide if they want to be here on Friday or not.
Yeah. I guess. So, all right, so the main thing is, Lisa, if we are going to be open, yes, communication, posting on doors, posting on the website, and trying to coordinate with one another. Like if it's an admin that's out, then I would hope the department head's going to be there, or vice versa.
Well, on Fridays, it's only department heads that are here anyway.
All right.
So if some of the department heads choose to use their floater that day, the department would be closed.
That's fine.
But like I said, we'll do the best we can to make sure that everything gets out there. And I can suggest that folks call town hall if they do need to come to town hall on that Friday, just to double check and make sure that the department is open. If not, we can provide them information when the department will be reopening. We will be reopening on Tuesday, the 26th, normal business hours. And that'll be something for us to think of next year, as Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve next year will fall on Tuesdays.
Okay.
And today at our department head meeting, I did introduce the self-assessment department head evaluations and the self-assessment employee evaluations to the department heads. We're also going to forward those to town council and then forward them for the unions, the Administrative Professionals Union and the Highway Union, for their review of these as well. So that process has started to get widespread evaluations up and running again. And that will complete my town administrator report for today.
Okay, and before we adjourn and potentially go to executive session, is there did you have something, Mrs.
I
Raines?
wanted to ask, how are things going on our new website? How is that coming?
So basically the mapping is going to be talked about at the January 16th department head meeting. We're going to have Blythe Robinson come in. I don't know if she'll come by Zoom or be here to talk with the department heads about the mapping part of it, so that she can get feedback and information on what they want to see removed, what they want to see kept. So that's going to happen January 16th.
Isn't our Capital Strategic Solutions contract coming to a close? Or does that go all the way until May?
It will go. It will keep going until we run out.
I thought it was a not to exceed, so I don't.
It is a not to exceed, but it just seems like this is taking an inordinate amount of time.
It does seem that way.
I've been keeping in touch with our IT director on that, and so.
Well, yeah, that's one guy. Does he have any help that he can avail himself of?
Well, I did make a suggestion to him that he bring in Therese, the IT assistant.
Correct.
On more of a full-time on her part-time schedule.
Right.
To dedicate to the website.
Because it just seems to me that if we had someone on that a little bit more dedicatedly, we might make a little bit more progress, because this is taking way too long.
Right, yes. Well, now that we have Therese on board, the IT assistant, we'll see more. We'll see more momentum on this.
I wonder if it might be possible for us to get a solid timeline of next steps and an ETA on completion. From our IT director, yes. Yep. Project plans help keep everybody on pace. Okay. So now, Ms. Green, we have a couple of items in executive session, and I'm wondering, do you feel as though we need to discuss either of those in executive session, or may we just adjourn? Did you have any critical updates, knowing that we're going to meet next week to go over the liquor licenses?
Basically on either one of these, there's really no updates that have caused anything different.
Okay, so with that said, one of the other things I would like to talk about at our next meeting is we need to announce what we discussed in executive session at our last meeting, and which minutes we have voted to release. And we did not have that on our agenda for tonight, so we need to have it on our agenda for whatever we meet next week. Which is sticking in my craw, so I was
sticking in my craw.
You're talking next week, that's gonna be a quick meeting?
Quicker than this one.
Yes, it will be, yes, it will be quicker than this one. Yes, so the only two things that we should be talking about are renewing the licenses and then the release of the executive session minutes. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Before I do, I just want to say, this
No discussion on
might
that.
be, I kind of want to say it just because I'm not sure whether we absolutely will be meeting next week, but I do want to say I thoroughly enjoyed serving with you guys this year. I'm looking forward to next year. I think we've got a lot to get done, but we've got a good group of people to do it with, so I just want to thank you. And with that, all in favor?
Second that.
Aye.
Okay, all right, great.
Are you not in favor?
So we are adjourning.
You want to?